Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Kev Baker. Welcome back to another live broadcast of the Kev Baker Show, right here on TFRlive.com. Now, I am having a little issue with my Skype today, so bear with me 2 little seconds here, and I will reboot my Skype, and I'll be back with you in all of 5 seconds. You can start counting now. Now, if you're on YouTube, just bear with me, folks. We've had the dreaded Skype glitch has struck again. So give me 2 moments and I will make the magic happen, and then we'll be right with you here on the screen as well. Give me 2 seconds. And then we just do this. Back in here, go to the network. This is going to be a good show tonight, folks. Always a good show with Ben Emlyn-Jones. Yes, there we go. I'm back. I am live. See? How long did that take me? Were you counting out there? Did it even take me 5 seconds? I'm not sure it did. But yes, thank you all so much for tuning in today to what is going to be a very, very good show indeed. Because I am joined by my good friend, Ben Emlyn-Jones. There we go. Yep. And we're going to get into a whole host of topics in just a moment. So now that we've got over the initial Skype glitch and I wait for Ben to put his camera back on again, let me just tell people what I got up to last night. There we go. I'm here. I'm live. Yes, I was up very, very late last night. I had the pleasure of going on Clyde Lewis's Ground Zero show, and he had an episode entitled Monster. So yes, I have become the thing that I feared I would be. I am now to be dubbed as the Monster Man. Yes, that's right. Not once, but twice now. I've been on Clyde's show to talk about the Loch Ness Monster. And we got into so many other topics as well. Now, that was 4 a.m. in the UK. And I apologise to the many people out there who didn't know when the show was going to be on. And right up until maybe a couple of hours before going live, I too hadn't confirmed it. And that's why I didn't bombard social media hours in advance, days in advance about my appearance on there, because I honestly didn't know if it was going to happen or not. And if it had fallen through and I'd told all of you to be there, I'd have looked so silly. So I didn't want to risk that. And it is available for all of you to listen for free over on SoundCloud. Yes, lots of good stuff in there. And Clyde was talking about the Oregon coast and how there's a fault line there, an active area, and a volcano. And we were playing noises that have been recorded down at the volcano. And it really took me back to a show that I'd done a number of years ago with today's guest, Ben Emlyn-Jones, because we got into something that is commonly referred to as the Bloop. Now, the Bloop is something I discussed with Clyde last night. We will get into it with Ben as today's show progresses. But all of this is starting to link together, and it's been unintentional because in preparation for today's show, Ben got in touch with me and he said, Kev, I've got these links that we can look at. And there was a bit of DARPA, a bit of DUMS, bit of this, bit of that. But in there, in the middle, was a story about a shark that we're going to hear about later. And when you start to factor all of that into the information I got into with Clyde Lewis last night, unbeknown to Ben, unconnected altogether, well, it's hard to ignore that there are definite connections. And it's one of these little threads of information that I'm going to pull on, and we're going to take it so much deeper. So then, who is Ben Emlyn-Jones? Well, he is the man behind something called the Hospital Porters Against the New World Order, or as we like to call it here, Hipanwo. And he does a podcast. He also speaks at events around the UK. He's got a speaking engagement coming up at the Bases Project very soon. We'll find out all about that. Not only that, but Ben is also an author of a trilogy of books, which takes a look at the disclosure topic and Roswell. So without any further ado, let me bring the man himself onto the show, Ben Emlyn-Jones. How you doing, my Welsh friend?
Kev, not bad, my Scottish friend. We're in the semi-finals of the Rugby World Cup. That's the main
Ben,
thing.
I have to say, man, congratulations on that count. Absolutely
Thanks.
fantastic. Scotland got robbed. We always
I'm
get
sorry
robbed.
about that.
That's
Yeah.
okay. But no, I must admit, I was quite surprised when I seen the Welsh getting through.
Well, we've always had a little bit of a problem when we get to the quarterfinals. We get kicked out France, England. We end up facing one of those big teams and falling flat. But this time, we did win against France in a nail-biting match. So congratulations to the Welsh rugby team. That's all I can say, and I'm really pleased.
Awesome, man. And it's been a month as usual. You know, you're back for your monthly visit. So much. It seems like more and more gets crammed into the month in between when we speak all the time, Ben. And before we get into the stuff that we're really going to drill down, that was an unintentional pun, by the way, but we're going to drill down into what DARPA are getting up to. But you are somebody that I trust to go to get my updates for anything that might be political going on in the UK. Now, I've kind of taken as far a step back as possible from all the Brexit shenanigans, done a lot of shows in the build-up to the referendum, myself and Christopher Everard, myself and you, and here we are, Ben, still going on. And we've had a couple of votes today. I see Boris Johnson in one hand, he had a victory, and then in another hand, he got defeated right away again. What's happening, man?
Oh, it's like a bad soap opera. It really is. I'll be so glad when this is over. It's terrible. It's the Boris Johnson did indeed manage to get the Withdrawal Act passed, which is something the first time that's happened. It's taken well over 3 years to get to this point, when the Article 50 period is supposed to be only 2 years, and he's got his Withdrawal Act passed, and the Withdrawal Act is intended for us to leave the European Union on the 31st of October, which is less than 2 weeks away now. The problem is that the people who have been opposing him they've now passed more legislation, which seems intended to obstruct the passing into law of the Withdrawal Act, which is, to me, pointless and rather spiteful in my view. And so we're now going to have to wait probably a bit longer. We don't know how long, but there might well be an extension. It all depends. Or we get or we can just leave on the World Trade Organization's rules, or as you might have heard it called in the news, crashing out without a deal. It sounds scary. It's not as scary as it sounds, actually. But at the moment, we still don't know what's going to happen. It's still very much up in the air. It's just very frustrating to watch. I feel uncomfortable and very sickened watching these really quite disgusting people do their dirty work, quite frankly.
Yeah, that's why I had to kind of get away from the politics. I ended up feeling dirty watching these people. But tell me then, Boris Johnson, I mean, is he determined to get us out like it does seem on the face of it? Or is he just playing his, his party games? Is this all for just the public consumption? What's your take, man?
Well, I had this discussion with Caroline Stevens on her show the week, and we disagreed completely about this. But I mean, if he's playing some kind of 5-dimensional chess, or even 6 or 7-dimensional chess, he's doing a very good job indeed, I must say. I mean, I think he sincerely wants to get this done. I don't think he's the chosen one that's supposed to be in Parliament right now. I don't think that what the hires up really wanted him there, and he's not doing as he's told. I know we have different views on this, but I think he's a similar kind of character to President Trump. Whether he'll succeed or not, I don't know. But I'm quite enjoying the fact that, for the first time in my life, I'm actually looking at my Prime Minister and feeling a modicum of respect and admiration, because I've never felt that before with any of the others, Kev. It's really quite a new experience for me.
I've always said out of all of them, Boris Johnson I've got a degree of time for, only because he's such an absolute comedy gold minefield of you just don't know what's going to happen with him next. He's compelling to watch. You don't know what's going to come out of his mouth. You don't know if he's going to parachute into a conference, if he's going to jump out like a jack in a box. He's crazy, dude. And if there's one man in the UK that might see common sense and legalise the marijuana, it's got to be Boris Johnson, because if that man isn't smoking it, dang, I want some of what he's on.
He really has a kind of human side to him, which you don't often see among statesmen. He has a sense of humor. He has the ability to laugh at himself, to the point where, I mean, a lot of people approach me and they say, Ben, look, it's just an act. He's just playing the role. But I really don't think that's the case at all. Despite his background and some of the suspicious elements of what he's done in the past and where he's been, the Bullingdon Club, etc., I'm willing to give him a chance. I think there are certain tests we can apply to his sincerity. And I actually said this when he first became Prime Minister, and I said that if he slips up on any of them, I'll be the first to say so. But so far, he's passed those tests, Kev. And so until he does slip up, I'm going to continue giving him the benefit of the doubt.
Quite right, my man. Quite right. Somebody in the chat room was talking about, is there any Brexit UFOs? That would be interesting. Oh, yeah, definitely. But let us get into what you were sending me yesterday, some of the links, some of the stories that you've really been drilling down into. And we'll start with DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Program Agency.
Agency.
Yeah, what have they been up to this time, dude?
Something really extraordinary. It was announced a couple of months ago. I mean, someone whispered this to me at the time, and I've only just had a chance to look at it. But they put an ad out. They put an advertisement on a public website and on Twitter, asking something rather strange. They also had there's a PDF document called DARPA SN 1975, and it says underground experimentation. Defense DARPA Tactical Technological Office. And just to give you an idea of what the Tactical Technological Office does, it is engages in high risk, high payoff, advanced military research, emphasizing the system and subsystem approach to the development of aeronautic, space and land systems, as well as embedded processors and control systems. Well, it's not just aeronautic, space and land. They're going deeper. They're thinking now, and to quote them, they're saying that the subsurface, the subterranean domain, whether human man-made tunnels or underground, urban underground infrastructure, is becoming increasingly relevant for global security and disaster-related search and rescue missions. They've actually put out a request saying, the TTO says, they want information on university-owned or commercially managed underground urban tunnel and facilities that may be available to support research and experimentation associated with ongoing and future research initiatives. And they're specifically looking for human-made underground environments that span several city areas with complex layout, multiple stories, which are currently closed off to members of the public. And they say, for example, there's a very, very interesting paragraph. It's actually not in the... I'm just going to find my notes. You see, the original website, oddly enough, has been taken down, which I find very odd. There was an original website called livescience.com where they put the ad up, and you could download a PDF file with all this details, and now they've taken that down. Now, this is a very ominous sentence indeed.
I can bring that up to date for you,
okay,
Ben, because I remember covering this at the time. And the reason they've probably taken it down is because it was time sensitive. And that sounds a bit weird, but there was headlines at the end of August, like this one here, saying, why does DARPA need a huge underground facility by Friday? So I would imagine the reason the article's gone now is because it was something that they wanted short term. And I couldn't figure out either, Ben, what the hell's going on here. One thing that was running concurrently to this when the ad went out was something called the DARPA Subterranean Challenge. And this was things like Boston Dynamics Spot, the robotic dog, and various other startup companies would show their ability to cover 500 meters or however long, and it'd be carrying so many pounds, blah, blah, blah. Now, again, that's just me putting two and two together. But I remember when this came out at the time, it was so weird. And because there was such a push on, I was basically thinking about it this way, Ben. I mean, why would they need to do such a public kind of appeal for a facility like this when they could go to universities? They've probably got people at universities as it is. All in all, it just seemed really, really strange.
Doesn't make sense why.
No.
Public advertisement is something you don't normally see these government agencies doing. And especially when they put out words like this, DARPA is interested in understanding state-of-the-art and innovative technologies that may enable future solutions to rapidly map, navigate, and search underground complex subterranean environments to locate objects of interest. Now, it doesn't actually say what these objects of interest are, and I wonder what kind of experiments they're talking about doing. But it did make my conspirator spin a little bit, you know, and wonder what's going on here. The underground world is an interesting one because, of course, we tend to think of the Earth as a solid object, and the air and space is above us. And there's the atmosphere, there's the Earth's surface, then gives way to the atmosphere, and then space. But the Earth's surface, there's not a smooth transition between the air and the ground. It's more like the head on a pint of beer. There's all kinds of cavities within the shallow areas of the Earth's surface, both artificial and natural, caves and things like that. And of course, these things are well known to archaeologists, potholers, and people like that. And probably a large number of them are unknown. Some of them are secret; they're classified. Area 51, for example, Dulce, Peasmore. Some of them are natural, and who knows what's in there. In fact, to get myself in the mood for tonight's show, I've been watching a film called The Descent, which is it's a horror movie. I don't know how many people have seen it, but it's about a group of potholers who go into a cave and they come across some really scary underground creatures, unknown creatures that attack them. And it's a really good movie.
That subterranean world, Ben, you know, that does intrigue me greatly. There are stories of potential inner Earths, stuff like that. But even without going that far, I think with the cavernous nature of some parts of the planet, very, very open to the idea that there could be unknown species, things like that, right beneath our feet, and we wouldn't even know about it.
Maybe this is what DARPA are interested in. Maybe there's something down there that they are involved in. I don't know what that might be, of course. But
well, add to that then. At the same time, you've got Elon Musk boring holes in the US to the point where it's looking like Swiss cheese with his boring company.
That's odd, isn't it? I mean, there's a lot of people involved suddenly in underground research. For example, there's the construction of underground chambers. There's the seed vault on Svalbard. Yeah. There's allegedly some bunkers being created in Norway.
We've got a couple of listeners from over in Norway, Ben. Yeah. So we do, yes. Very proud of that.
Oh, well done. Well, good. I don't know how to say that in Norwegian.
They've got their own. Now, did you know they've got their own spaceport over there, the Andøya spaceport?
I didn't know they had a spaceport in Norway. No,
yeah, you see, same here, Ben. I had no idea, but this is something that the European Space Agency are looking to use more and more. So I think it might be an area of interest for people like me and you, Ben.
Yeah, for whatever reason, the people high up in power are digging down. They're digging in for some kind of siege, or I don't know what it is. They're creating a lot of underground facilities. They're expecting trouble of some kind where these things might be needed. DARPA obviously is going to be on the cutting edge of that because it is the scientific arm of the US government, especially in military areas. But DARPA was also involved in things such as computing and electronic warfare, cyberspace, and indeed it was one of the pioneers of the internet. Actually, was involved with DARPA. I forgot his name now, but one of the guys who set up the World Wide Web or just helped design it was involved in DARPA. DARPA have several offices around the area and all around the world. Basically, they have offices in various places. And there's some of them are close to some of the skeptic organisations. That's a long story, but it's a sinister organisation. It's a sinister piece of work. I mean, there's a guy called Colonel John Alexander who was involved with DARPA. It used to be called ARPA, A-R-P-A. The D was added later. But you often see him at UFO conferences and things like that, talking about things such as psychological warfare, non-lethal weapons, so-called, which includes the taser, although I think several dozen people have been killed by tasers since their invention. Weirdest of all, remote viewing. And he spent a lot of time with John Hutchison, the guy who tried to recreate the experiments of Nikola Tesla at his laboratory in Canada. In the early 1980s, he went and he worked closely with him. And there's a big, long story. I don't know if you talked
that John Hutchinson, the Hutchinson effect. That's some fascinating stuff, Ben.
Have you had Dr. Judy Wood on your show?
I haven't had her on the show, no. But yeah, again, she talks about the dustification of buildings and things like that on that day back in September. Very,
Very
very,
strange. Yeah.
very interesting. It's hard to refute the evidence that she produces, presents.
Yeah.
And she
I mean,
she doesn't really make much claims, to be honest, Ben. She really just says, well, look at this picture. How come this has been turned to dust? And yet over here, this bit of paper hasn't been touched. You've got wheels that are melted, and it's hard to really knock.
very much so. And in fact, it really is a very, very well put together idea and explanation for what happened on 9/11. And this connection with John Hutchison, who Colonel John Alexander spent a lot of time with before he was famous on the UFO circuit when he was working for DARPA. And now people have denounced Hutchison as a fraud, but a conjurer. But Alexander spent 4 months with him, I believe. And shortly after that, John Hutchison got into trouble and had a lot of his equipment stolen by the Canadian government. And then, of course, several decades later, we have 9/11. And that, to me, is an odd connection. So this seems to be like the covert organization behind an awful lot of things. If you look at what they're up to, it's not just underground stuff they're doing. I mean, there's some really sinister things. For example, in 2016, they actually formed a contract with the U.S. Department of Defense to tender contracts to develop genetically modified plant viruses for an approach involving their dispersion into the environment using insects. Plant viruses as carriers of gene editing circuitry are a natural partner for an insect-transmitted delivery platform. So infecting insects and then letting the insects spread them to plants, presumably maybe to destroy crops and induce some kind of famine, or if you want to attack a country, you attack its agriculture, you can create like a food crisis and things like that. But it talks about inserting genetically modified viruses and things like that. I mean, there's all kinds of a huge amount of material here. Some of it involved in biological warfare, cancer viruses, sophisticated biological warfare, things like that, vaccines. There's a whole list of things that DARPA are involved in. You go to their website, I mean, it's incredible. There's a list along your arm. But they've been running since 1957, and they've been working, as I say, in space research, military, land forces, and are now underground. So this really is full spectrum dominance, to quote Project for a New American Century, the Strategies, Forces and Resources documents. So DARPA are obviously playing a big role in that.
Absolutely. And on their website, they've got the Subterranean Sub-T Challenge Urban Circuit, and that's down for February 2020. Locations to be announced. It's talking about the Sub-T Challenge seeks to better equip warfighters and first responders to explore uncharted underground environments that are too dangerous, dark, or deep to risk human lives. In 3 circuit events and 1 final event, participating teams will deploy autonomous systems to attempt to map, navigate, and search various underground environments. Teams earn points by correctly identifying artifacts placed within those environments. So, listen, yeah, it's like testing, it's startups, but why the need to have a proof of concept for something that's going to locate stuff underground, unless you're going looking for stuff underground, Ben?
Yeah, exactly. And it's something, obviously, that is of defense significance. Now, what underground is of defense significance? I mean, obviously, man-eating creatures like in the film The Descent. But I'm thinking, the weird thing is that sometimes odd things are found underground. For example, in Seattle a few years ago, there was a very interesting situation where basically a strange object was they were digging a tunnel. A tunnel was being dug. It's the Alaskan Way Viaduct replacement tunnel. It was basically it's one of the widest tunnels. It's 2 miles long and 60 feet, 57 feet across. That's a really wide, big tunnel. And they used a giant tunnel boring machine, the biggest in the world, to create it. And it had to stop at some point because about 1,000 feet in, they came across an obstruction of some kind and they couldn't bore through it. It was not spotted by the surveyors. And we don't know what that was. But very strangely enough, the news stories went away, and we didn't hear anything more about it. Now, that was just very odd, I think, because it reminded me a little bit of the film Quatermass and the Pit. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
I've not seen that one, no.
Obviously, this is fiction and not fact, but I did wonder whether art was once again going to imitate life, or the vice versa, because that has happened a few times. In the film Quatermass and the Pit, it's a film about I think it's from the 1950s or 60s, about they're digging a tunnel on the London Underground, and they come across essentially an alien spaceship.
Whoa, hold that thought. Alien spaceships underground. We'll be right back, folks. Don't go anywhere. More coming from Ben Emlyn-Jones. There we go, my good man. We're on the break at TFR, but of course, like I like to joke, yes, like we can't get naked and get the dancing girls out and stuff like that just yet. We'll wait till this mob.
What do I normally do?
Yeah, we'll wait till this mob are gone, and then we can crack open the whiskey and stuff. So yeah, Ben, the whole Brexit debacle, eh?
No,
I mean, when are we meant to be out? Is it meant to be Halloween?
It's meant to be Halloween night, yes. And now there's it looks likely now that it's going to be delayed again. And I'm like, oh god, not again! It's like endless delays. It's so annoying, and it's annoying. It's annoying people generally. Everyone I go to, even people who support Britain in the EU, are now getting fed up with it. And they're just getting bored with it. And they want it over with. And I mean, the good side of it is, I think this has been an enormously educational experience for people, and regardless of the outcome, that fact remains. We've seen, in essentially the government show, and the politicians, the statesmen who do the bidding of the higher ups, the Illuminati, whatever you choose to call them, the deep state, they have shown their true colours in a way that I've never seen before, and people will not forget it, and they will not forgive it. It's not going to go away. This is going to have implications for the indefinite future. And in a sense, the more Brexit is delayed and obfuscated and obstructed, the worse it gets for the people, our enemies, especially. So in a sense, they're really discrediting themselves with this. They really are. And I'm covering every moment of it.
That's the one important thing I take from it personally. Is that it's done more to wake people up than probably shows like this could ever hope to do. Because,
exactly.
Yeah, because people have had it flung in their face that, these politicians that are there to represent us, it's never been so clear to anyone, especially when they're refusing to go with the will of the vote of the people. Even the most comatose, if we can use the whole asleep kind of analogy, even the most comatose people are going, what the hell is this all about, Ben? They are criminals. They don't care about us.
No, there's some of them, I mean, the things they're saying at the moment, I've never heard politicians say before. I mean, there's some of them are literally saying, forget the 2016 referendum. It was a bunch of ignorant white men, let's just revoke Article 15, just pretend it never happened.
How did I know?
Some of them are saying that openly.
How did I know? How did I know testicles would get the blame for this? It was inevitable. Yeah. I seen them saying as well that when Boris was close to getting his deal through, they were basically trying to say, well, you see, this is exactly the same deal as Theresa May tried to get through. But of course, it's because he's a white man. This will go through this time. Never let a good opportunity go to waste when you're virtue signaling or getting fake outraged or jumping on the identity bandwagon. You know, Ben, come on.
Yes, I know. They never let. That's an opportunity, like I said, they will always use. As a matter of fact, Boris Johnson's deal is not like Theresa May's at all, because they say, it is different because the whole Northern Ireland policy is different. Well, the thing is, the whole problem with Theresa May's deal was the Northern Ireland policy. I mean, I feel sorry for Northern Ireland people, because that little scrap of land has been used as a hook and an anchor and a punch bag for all this whole issue. And
why? Because they don't care about us. You see,
they don't care. No. We are cattle to them. We're expendable. I mean, they killed thousands of us in New York without a second thought.
Yep.
Here we go, Ben.
Here we go.
That's the content they feel. Oh, we're back. Okay.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm joined by Ben Emlyn-Jones today. He's here with me. We have been going deep underground in the first segment of the show as we try and work out what DARPA, or why DARPA, have been taking such a strong interest in the subterranean realm. I also threw it out there that I find it interesting. Maybe a coincidence, probably a coincidence, but we don't sit well with coincidences here. That at the same time, we've got Elon Musk, somebody who I'm usually the biggest champion for. But I do raise an eyebrow when I see his boring company. Now, don't get me wrong, I love the way the boring company goes about it. Every bit of dirt that is pulled out from the tunnel that's been made is then turned into cheap bricks. And if you're from a local charity or you're trying to build some cheap housing, he literally gives those bricks away. So nothing going to waste there. But what is it about people with money, governments, them? What is it about them going underground? And why is there such a push right now? Be it from the nuclear bunker business, from preppers at home, to like we're seeing here, government agencies really showing an interest in sub-T, as they call it at DARPA, Ben. And we're going to speculate now. What would you say if you had to guess? And that's all we can do. No pressure. It doesn't matter if we're right or wrong. No way of telling. But what do you think this is all about, Ben? Do you think there's something pushing this? Or do you think it's just something that, you know, that they want to have some backup just in case they need to have it in the future?
Very difficult question. I mean, what I said before the break was somewhat speculative about Quatermass and the pit, but it's not beyond the realms of possibility that they will be concerned with these objects of interest in some underground location that may not have been discovered yet. And there's lots of those. I mean, Nottingham, for example, has miles and miles of caves, and a lot of them have never been explored. And there's many other examples. Maybe there's something down there related to some of the secret things that they keep from people, which they don't want us to find out. Alternatively, it could be for the creation of subterranean infrastructures, underground bases that the skeptics say don't exist, even though we can prove they exist. Richard Sauder, for example, has proved beyond doubt that there is an underground base at Area 51 simply by doing the mathematics, the size of the surface location and the number of people who work there. It's just basic mathematics. He knows there are far too many people working there for them to be working all in that big in just what's on the surface. So it may be something like that.
And Ben, you could throw in there, talk about one of the hot spots in Conspiracy Woo, the Denver airport, one of the terminals that got completely built and then completely covered over because, you know, they didn't need it. And then you've got all the other woo at that airport as well, the New World Aviation Authority. You've got rumours of underground bases there. That's a major one, right?
Yes, Denver Airport is infamous within this field because several people, there's a guy called Phil Schneider who talked about how he was an architect engineer, and he designed underground facilities going 6 levels down beneath the actual airport terminal. 6 levels means that there's more underground at Denver Airport than there is above it. And there's all kinds of weird things at Denver Airport. You mentioned these Masonic stones, referring to the New World Airport Authority, whatever that is. There's also some rather sinister paintings and murals, which I believe have been obliterated now because the passengers were so disturbed by them. They're really quite, they showed quite disgusting things such as corpses, dead animals, you know, destruction of the earth and things like that. Oh, it's so horrible. It was painted by a Japanese guy, I believe, and there's this demonic horse, this blue horse, which is rearing up, it has red eyes and looks like something that the devil would ride, and that someone was actually killed during the construction of that, oddly enough, in a freak accident. And there's this sense of a sinister nature of the airport that leads people to believe that this could be part of what we're talking about here. I wouldn't be surprised if DARPA was in some way involved in the construction of that airport, although it may well be a classified operation, is not available on their public list of achievements.
And then there was also an occasion, Ben, when they had this little creature at the airport as well. Now you go back to, let me see the date on this, March the 1st, I think it might have been last year or a year before that, but literally a gargoyle greeting people. And it says, travellers passing through Denver International Airport, best be aware of the Air Hub's newest official, a talking animatronic gargoyle statue that is full of sass, sarcasm, and spooky conspiracy theories. It says here on Thursday, reps for Denver International Airport unveiled the chatty creature perched in the main terminal in honor of the airport's 24th year in operation. And the Atlanta Journal Constitution reports, and the airport shared footage of the elegant gargoyle surprising passers-by to YouTube, where it has since gone viral. And again, that was maybe a year ago, but the airport themselves, they're even playing into this whole kind of conspiracy trope that exists about the place, right?
I've not seen this, but I must look it up, actually. I've not heard this. I have heard, though, there was an advertising campaign. It's called Den's Got Secrets, and it was a whole list of... They basically had a publicity campaign based on this notoriety of theirs, this element of what the things we're talking about. Now, I personally don't believe there's anything suspicious about that. I think it's just basically the public relations and the marketing department at the airport having a laugh. I think they are poking fun at us. They're poking fun at us, and I think they're just doing it for entertainment and a way of promoting the airport based on its notoriety, its infamy within our circles. And I suspect this gargoyle is a part of that. And I'll be curious to see it. I'm sure I could have a laugh like these people are very amused by it on this video. But of course, behind that, though, there is a serious issue. I mean, they're making a joke out of it, but I believe it is a serious issue, although I don't believe the people who design these things take it seriously. For the reasons we've just talked about, this sort of thing is real. It's not just a bit of fun. There are some really odd things to do with a lot of these areas where there's underground bases. You see this sort of thing. I mean, gargoyles, you might see them on old castles and churches, and these old cathedrals like Notre Dame. What are they? I mean, they're like winged reptilian humanoids. I mean, who got the idea for those? I didn't read about those in the Bible, did you? So what are they doing in a cathedral?
It's one of the things I noticed
big church, isn't it?
In London as well, when you like look up above eye level and you get beyond the CCTV cameras, some of these big old buildings down there, these horrible reptilian, dragon, impish looking things, just horrid. There's even a feeling about them that's horrible looking at them, dude. I don't get it. Like you say, why? I mean, why? You build this lovely Gothic cathedral, something that to this day is an absolute feat of architecture and building, and yet you decide to put these creepy, horrible, impish reptilians on it?
Yes, I mean, I wasn't aware. It's an odd when you consider the cathedrals are supposed just to be big churches, and they're more than that. I mean, in Oxford, I mean, I actually looked into this myself. Well, someone else actually found out about it, and I went and examined it. But there's some statues in Magdalen College, Oxford, which show distinct half-human, half-lizard-like creatures, and no one knows why. I mean, these things were carved over 500 years ago, and they're put up around the quad of Magdalen College, and it's a big mystery, but it's not a secret as such, because they're putting these things out there. They're just not telling them why. They're not telling them what they mean. And to me, that's an incredible thing, but it can't be ignored. It's something that can't be ignored. So these things should make us think. They should make us wonder and realize that there's a lot going on behind the scenes, which they're giving us hints almost as a kind of maybe a way of alleviating karma, because if they sort of drop hints and we don't respond, that kind of absolves them of any accountability within their belief system, within the satanic belief system. But I do encourage people to look into this some more. I really do.
Absolutely. And at the weekend, we were exploring information that would support the idea we may be heading towards, and I'm very keen to say maybe heading, speculating stuff like that. I don't know. I'm no climatologist, Ben. But we were looking at the chances of, as opposed to get into this warming period, like we've been programmed to believe, we looked the other way. Maunder minimums and something called the grand solar minimum. Now, the reason I bring this up with you is because I suppose underground, subterranean, that would fit if this, for lack of a better term, mini ice age was to hit the planet. You know, underground would be somewhere you would want to go.
That's a good point. It's somewhere you could store large amounts of food if, for example, agriculture had to be reduced because of the lack of growing seasons. Now, of course, everyone knows about climate change. It's in every news story. It's all over the place. Now, climate change, I don't believe, is affected by emissions of carbon dioxide. There's other factors that do affect it, though. For example, the solar activity. Now, one of the reasons I do a space weather report every week on my own show is to keep an eye on things like this. And I can assure you that this talk about the great minimum is real. We've had more than a month since there's been any sunspots at all. Now, this hardly ever happens. The sun does go through a sunspot cycle of high activity, massive X-ray emissions, solar flares, and then it shrinks to a low activity over a period of 11 years. The cycle goes to 11 years. At the moment, we're at the deepest point of that. However, it's exceptionally deep this time. The last time we had a solar minimum this long and this deep, it did affect the Earth's climate. In fact, I think it was the beginning of the 18th century. There was a drop of, the end of the 17th century. There was a drop of like 3 degrees in the average temperature of the Earth. We didn't come out of it literally to the end of to sort of the middle of the 19th century. The River Thames froze over. They used to have ice fairs and ice skating races and things like that. A lot of the Christmas card scenes you see in postcards and things, in Christmas cards, the snowy scenes, date back to that period, and it was known as the mini ice age, as you just said. Now we know climate change is real. Everyone's preparing for it. The problem is all the climate change alleviation projects we know of are geared towards, as you're explaining, a warmer world. But what if it doesn't get warmer? What if it gets colder? That could cause problems too. For example, as we just mentioned, agriculture will be affected. The transport will be affected by things such as snow and ice on roads and railways. We would have problems with keeping warm in winter, especially old people, things like that. This would have enormous effects on our economy, on our society, on all kinds of other things. And it could be there are certain individuals who are worried that if there is some kind of breakdown of law and order as a result of this, they might want to get out the way, which could be why there's more and more underground constructions being built. For people who can afford it or people important enough, they want to get out of the way. I mean, obviously, you and I don't think we'd be allowed in. We could knock on the door as much as we like. They'll say, no, you sit out there and freeze, bucko. We're just normal people. But I think there are certain people who probably know about it, and they try, and it's a kind of like a preppers thing for millionaires.
That's what I think, Ben. I think whether it's D-waves or some other quantum machine or something we don't know about, I do think they're able to tell what's coming, near and sort of into the future, near future. So, yeah, they absolutely know what's coming down the pike at us. And it wouldn't surprise me if that's part of the push here to get these underground facilities up and running. Now, I've asked you this before, but we're always getting new listeners, and I think it's worthy going over again. But the UK, we often hear about the underground military bases, Dulcie, things like that. We've got Philip Schneider, his infamous speeches. But what about over here? Because our MOD, we've got our finger in the New World Order pie. They'll know what's happening. Are we doing anything? Have we got anything?
Well, yes. I mean, there's talk of all kinds of rumours of secret underground bases in various places. You might have heard of AL/499, which is said to be beneath Peasmore, a village in Berkshire. I've been to visit the location and the locations of the supposed entrances. I didn't find much evidence, but at one of the places, there is like a large mound, which is not marked on any maps, which I think is very interesting. However, we know for a fact that there are other bases, which some of them are formally classified and now are available, now are not classified. Some of them are even open to the public and you can visit them. These are but nuclear bunkers and things like that, which some of them are museums. Some of them are still classified. Some are derelict. Some are privately owned. But there's one called Rudloe Manor, which is most interesting of all, I think. And this is in Gloucestershire. RAF Rudloe Manor, there's been an underground facility there for a long time. In fact, since World War II, it was used as an intelligence centre and command centre, and indeed storage for ammunition and things like that. However, there's distinct reason to believe that the underground base since World War II has expanded through the Cold War. There's been development and expansion there, and people who live in the area, including some people I know, told me there are things such as strange noises coming from underground, like loud bangs and booms and vibration coming
That's
from
what I
underground.
wonder with some of these mysterious sounds, Ben. Not all of them, but I think some of them. It'd be interesting to be there so we could see if we could feel the vibration as opposed to just hearing it from around us. If you could feel it coming up from down below, I think that'd be very telling as to what some of these sounds are. Big time.
Yeah, if they can be recorded
Yeah.
and analysed,
And that's
yes.
going to
I
be
mean, it's a good
hard for
idea.
them to cover up when they're doing that. You know, it's going to be, if they've got to drill a tunnel, keeping that noise from anyone who's in the surrounding area, that's problematic, dude.
Yeah, it depends how deep the tunnel is.
Yeah.
But I mean, but I mean, tunnel digging does cause vibration, and sometimes that can cause infrasound. It can lead to all kinds of infrasound, very low frequency vibrations, which can be detected, and indeed can have effects on the human body and things like that, and indeed can cause things, can be heard by some people. Also, when you're digging underground tunnels, I mean, you've got a lot of spoil which is coming out, and not unlike Elon Musk, not everyone wants to turn it into bricks. You have to like get rid of it. You have to like take it out in trucks and lorries. So if you see lots of lorries driving out of an area filled with just rock and rubble and earth, that could be a sign that someone's digging. So that's a thing to look out for. Richard Sauder talks about that as well. There's all kinds of other things you can look out for. For example, any underground facility will need ventilation, because you have to find some way of bringing air down into the facility beneath the earth, because there's no natural supply of air. So there'll be air vents on the surface. There'll be induction vents and exhaust vents on the surface, and you may see them disguised as houses or something like that. For example, if you see like a house and there's like a heat haze around it, that could be a sign this is some kind of extraction vent from some kind of underground facility.
And Ben, we've got something called the ROC over here, the Royal Observer Corps. Not sure if they're still on the go now, but I remember my mum was in it when I was growing up, and up in Fort Augustus they had a little bunker, little underground, just a little office that they would go to in event of anything happening during the Cold War. And I would have to imagine that there's literally hundreds of these smaller kind of facilities all the way around the UK, anywhere that was in, you know, the US, mainland Europe, they're everywhere, right?
Yeah, in fact, I went to visit one. I mean, I couldn't get into it because it's a locked gate on it, but it was a Royal Observer Corps headquarters, and it was near it's near Nottingham, and the people in the event of nuclear war, the people there would take radiation readings and things like that, and radio them into headquarters and things like that. So that's just on the surface. I mean, there's a great documentary. I think it's called Secret Britain or something, and I can't remember the guy who presents it, but it's a very good documentary where he explores some of the, as I said, it just goes to some of these locations where he knows there are underground facilities, but he realizes that is just the tip of the iceberg. There could be many others that are not discovered, and indeed are not known by most people. They are only known by people who are directly involved with the project.
And that would
Everyone
be the
else will
point.
be
Yeah,
cleared.
that would be the whole point in having a secret underground bunker. You know, it's a very need to know basis. In fact,
Yeah.
one would have to worry about the contractors that build these facilities, Ben, because loose tongues may sink ships, or in this case, reveal locations.
Yeah, in fact, getting witness testimonies. I mean, a lot of the witness testimonies come from people like that. I mentioned Phil Schneider is one of these very people. I mean, Phil Schneider, oddly enough, it's a very strange thing. He started doing. He was on a lecture circuit in 1996. He kept the secrets his whole life, and then suddenly he started speaking out about it. And for a couple of months, he did tours, and luckily these were filmed, and you can actually watch them. But he always said, now I'm doing this, I know I'm going to be targeted, I'm going to be killed. They'll probably make it look like suicide, but it's not suicide. And indeed, he was found dead. He was found supposedly hanging in his own home. But a filmmaker, a friend of mine, actually, a guy called Darcy Weir, did an investigation and made a documentary, and he's proved beyond doubt that Phil Schneider was murdered.
Now, what was his story again? Was he the one at Dulcie? Was he the one that talked about? Yeah.
Mm. He was a German American. His father had actually been captured at the end of the war and was a prisoner of war, but decided to stay in the United States. And they used to let people do in those days. Schneider was an engineer, and he worked on several underground facilities. He was involved in the Dulcie underground base, which I know a lot of people don't believe exists, and I didn't for a while. But it's I think there is something there. I mean, maybe not all the stories are true. Maybe not every word of the Dulcie book is true, but something is there. I mean, there's I can't remember all the details now, but there's many reasons to think that. And Schneider was involved in designing these. He was one of these engineers who was brought in, and indeed he encountered. It reminds me. There was one of his stories is rather like the film The Descent. He goes down into a tunnel, and they encounter what you can only describe as some kind of alien in the tunnel, and there's some kind of fight. They attack the humans, and Phil and his team were armed, so they shoot back, and there's a shootout between himself and these aliens, and he was actually badly injured in the course of this particular event, in this incident. I think it happened in the early 1970s, I'm not sure, but it's called the Dulcie Wars. And indeed, he has shown pictures of his scars. He's got scars on his chest, on his belly, which look like some kind of burn, some kind of third-degree burn or something. It's pretty horrible.
Many's a year since I've watched the Schneider kind of information. I think I might dip my toe back in because it is a very interesting story. And again, there's a lot of people will kind of rubbish Schneider and his information, but again, I really don't see the benefits, the upside of making up something so extravagant and then coming out to the world with it just to face ridicule. I don't know. I think there's a lot more to Phil Schneider than people probably give him credit for. And these underground bases, if you don't even buy into the old Dulcie thing, that's cool. But here's somebody that literally worked on the construction and knows all about them.
Yeah. I mean, if he's making it up, you've got to ask, like you've just said, why?
Why?
He's a family man. He had a stable family and everything. And then he says, starts doing talks and say, oh, someone's going to murder me. It's going to look like suicide. And then, surprise, surprise, just a coincidence, nothing to worry about, as David Icke would say. He turns up dead, murdered, in a way that makes it look like he's hung himself. And so I'm inclined to agree with Darcy on this. I think we should be suspicious of his death, and as a result, take his story seriously. And he does present the evidence at his lectures. He's been forgotten now, pretty much, because he died in 1996. However, his videos are still there, so I do urge people to go and check them out.
Yeah, you see, this is a common kind of finale for actual whistleblowers, not the type that phone into YouTube shows and nameless and faceless characters, not that type of whistleblower, but the ones that literally pay with their lives, the ones that are persecuted and hounded to the point of ruin from the day they come forward with their information till the day they die. You know,
this is why the contractors you mentioned, a lot of them, so few of them do speak out.
Exactly.
Because the price, firstly, you get well paid for working on these projects and keeping these secrets. So there's an incentive, so it's a carrot and stick. You get well paid for working on these projects and treated very well. And if you breach the secrecy classifications that you've been initiated into, it's a massive stick. The price is very high. You usually pay with your life. Very often your family does as well.
Absolutely. Now, we are almost on the break, Ben. So let people know where they can find your books, where they can keep up to date with your show. You're more viral on the internet than I am, man.
Well, if you go to Hospital Porters Against the New World Order, HPANWO, HPANWO.blogspot.com. HPANWO Voice, if you put in a hyphen and voice, that's my main site. And of course, don't forget these books. This is Roswell Rising, a novel of disclosure. If you're into UFOs and aliens and Area 51 and things like that, you'll love this book. It's fictional. It's just a story, but it's a very important story because it asks the question, what if we got the truth instead of lies when it comes to UFOs? What would happen? And so I read this book and also wrote 2 sequels to it. So it's a trilogy of novels. So I hope you enjoy those.
And I see here, this is what I like about Ben as well, when he does a little blog post. He always contains the links in there for you to go and look at yourself. But you've also contained something really interesting. You've included the Swiss tunnel opening, the one near CERN. Now, that is some weird stuff going on there.
That was extremely creepy. It's a tunnel. It's called the Gotthard Base Tunnel. It's a very, very deep railway tunnel, one of the deepest in the world. It's also one of the longest. It's actually 4 miles longer than the Channel Tunnel. And it goes right through the Swiss Alps and comes out in, I think, northern Italy. And it's had an opening ceremony there, which involved some kind of very strange esoteric performance, which reminded me a little bit of the strange ballet that was done at CERN. Do you remember that? I can't remember what it's called now, but there was just a really weird ballet, and it included people wearing costumes, prancing around naked, and there was also like a kind of portal-like structure where you see people falling in, and indeed. I think over 40 people were killed building that tunnel, and that kind of construction, underground boring, is extremely dangerous, and the engineers who do it often, again, pay with their lives. And you see these guys wearing sort of engineers' uniforms, boiler suits, falling into a pit.
We will be right back, and hold on tight, folks. We're going from underground to under the surface of the ocean. We will be right back. There we go. There we go. Yes, indeed. That's the underground bases, Phil Schneider, all that stuff. It's up there. I like getting into that. It's always interesting to kind of speculate as to what the hell's going on, Ben. There's a whole lot of money going in there for it just to be somewhere extra to store stuff. Do you know what I mean?
And of course, there's always the esoteric element to any of these things. And indeed, in mythology across the world, we tend to, when people talk about heaven and they pray to God, they look up. And when they talk about hell and the devil, they look down. Now, of course, heaven and hell, if they exist, they're not actually up or down. They're neither. They're not in this world as such. But we tend to look up and down as kind of metaphors. We talk about going down to hell, going up to heaven. And the underground, therefore, has this reputation in occult lore of being dark and sinister. And so when we venture down there ourselves, we do things like was often accompanied by these strange, very, very black magic rituals. And indeed, a lot of the mythology and stories, I mean, the plot of The Descent is not really the film I was talking about. It's not really very original. It's done very well. It's a great movie, very scary and horrible, but it's not an original idea. The idea there's strange creatures living in caves, and if you go down there, you might encounter them. If you're a pothole or something, and you explore in a cave, you might encounter some strange creature. Lots of stories about that.
Pothole in once, and it is an entirely different world down there, folks. It is. It might as well be somewhere alien. You might as well be on a different planet, because it is nothing like what you get on the surface here, Ben. I was blown away. North Yorkshire, we done it with the army. We went potholing. I tell you, I enjoyed it. I thoroughly enjoyed it, but at the same time, damn, you got to be on your toes. Highly dangerous,
Oh yeah, these pitfalls. You got to rope up. It's almost like climbing rocks, and you got to wear helmets and things. I mean, I can imagine it being fun and exciting, but I would wonder what's around the next corner.
That's exactly it. Very wet, very cold, and I remember one bit. It was like that. And to look at it, you thought, there's no way some of us are getting through there. I mean, some of the bigger guys, but they called it the cheese press. And what you do is you get your shoulders and your head in, and you basically just, with your muscles and with the slime on the rock, you slowly make your way through, Ben. It's very, not for the claustrophobic, that's for sure. Definitely not. But yeah, what could be down there? Because you think we barely know anything really about the surface, and with the surface I include the seabed, but so we barely have scratched the surface of the planet, let alone the different layers, the different strata. What on earth could be down there? Who only knows?
Well, I was quite shocked when in Nottingham, when I used to go to Nottingham a lot because I had a partner who lived there, and the caves there, it's called the City of Caves. There's an exhibition, but only 2 of them are open to the public, but there are caves everywhere under Nottingham. And there are miles of them. Most of them have not been explored.
It's quite worrying. It's like sitting on Swiss cheese.
Yeah, I mean, most of them are actually not. You can't actually get into them because they're not safe. They don't have any air supply. Some of them are filled with poison gas. Some of them are flooded with water. But a lot of them are sealed off, and they go. No one knows exactly how far they go. So yeah, you're always hearing stories about new caves being discovered. Sometimes really long tunnels, which are ancient, absolutely ancient. No one knows who built them.
You've got caves between Scotland and Turkey.
Yes, You could go a cave between Scotland and Turkey. It was incredible, or right across Europe. And it's like, where, who built them, why, and how long ago?
Makes you wonder. Makes you wonder. Here we go, folks.
Okay.
We're going back to tfrlive.com. Welcome back. Hour number 2 already. Can you believe it? On today's Kev Baker Show, I've got Ben Emlyn-Jones with me. And the topics so far, these are the kind of things, but if I seen this on a show, I'd be tuning in to listen to it. Deep underground military bases, Denver Airport, taking a look at the stuff over here in the UK. And during the break, Ben, before we shift gears completely and get into something else, we were talking about the very little spoken of tunnel system that stretches across the entire length of Europe near enough. Goes from here in Scotland all the way to Turkey. Now, what on earth's name is that all about?
Yeah. I mean, I've heard about these tunnel systems. I know that it's very old. In fact, they've been dated back to the Neolithic period. Now, this was a time when people were building things like Stonehenge. And so they obviously were not stupid. They were clever people. But you'd think to themselves, they could build these things, but why? Why would they build them? Why would they dig tunnels when it's perfectly? Well, if you want to go to Turkey, it's easier just to walk and just cross the sea in a boat. So why build tunnels and things like that? I can't think of an answer to the question of why. I really can't.
Same here, my man.
I mean, it's like the ones under Nottingham, and no one knows who built these tunnels under Nottingham, even though some of them are medieval. And indeed, there's some old pubs which have like cellars, which have tunnels leading off from them. They think they date back to the Middle Ages, but some of them are much older. And there's other places such as Derinkuyu, which is in Turkey itself, and maybe the tunnels there are connected to this network. And indeed Petra, which I think is it Lebanon? It's somewhere in the Middle East. Petra.
Yeah.
It has a great
Jordan, I think.
Yeah,
Jordan.
It's famous. It has a great neoclassical.
Beautiful.
Entrance.
Yeah, that's the place that's like into the hillside.
Yeah, it goes back the tunnels go down and back for miles, and there's like a city under the ground. It's been described as, and you think, why are people going to actually do that when you think the surface would be pretty good? Why would anyone want to live underground? We're not naturally a subterranean creature, humans. So yes, there's some pictures there. This amazing facade, which I think predates. I think it was built after some of the tunnels were built, so that's like it's sort of Greco-Romanesque, but the tunnels I think may be older. Amazing thing that is.
Yeah, it's something else. It truly, truly is. So it does make you wonder. But I tell you what, we're talking about all these mysterious things below ground. In this case, above ground when it comes to Petra. But last night, when I joined Clyde Lewis, we were going aquatic. We were getting into the marine life. And you look at the planet, Ben, and it's covered with the ocean surfaces, the seas, and what lies beneath there. I really do wonder if we're even scraping the surface. Because Clyde was talking about off the coast of Oregon, and over there they've got the very active part of the Ring of Fire, as we know. And this volcano, this underground volcano, I think it's called the Axial Sea Mount. And they put the hydrophones down to listen to it. And the noises that was coming off this, Ben, it was weird. Sounded like, I don't know, something. Sounded whalish, demonic, horrible, just that underwater weirdness, right? But I tell you one thing it did make me kind of think of other underwater strange sounds. And the show that we done about the Bloop. Now, Clyde also brought up the Bloop on his show as well. And he was basically getting into the Loch Ness Monster. That's what I was there for. And other strange kind of mythical sea creatures. The Krakens, the H.P. Lovecraftian Cthulhus, this type of thing. And it makes you wonder, what may lie beneath the ocean surface. And then you had no idea I'm going on Clyde Lewis to speak about any of this. And you sent a story about a shark. Yeah. Now, what's happening with the sharks?
I don't think I'd have been as interested in this story if it had been the only one I'd seen, but it's one of two I've seen actually within the last year. But to begin with, what you said about the undersea is very true. we actually know a lot less about the subsurface ocean than we do about many of the planets of our solar system. It's an extraordinary area of mystery, and it covers 70% of the Earth, the oceans. But there are weird things down there. Now, sharks are apex predators, which means they're at the top of the food chain. Yet a shark has been captured. A shark was captured in the North Atlantic Ocean by an organization which is dedicated to monitoring shark activity. So they're trying to help the sharks. They capture these sharks and they just put satellite trackers on them, and that's why they captured this shark. But they noticed it had some unusual injuries. Now, sharks do get into fights with other sharks, and sometimes they get bitten. But this shark had an extraordinarily large bite on it, which you don't normally get on sharks. And this came just after another story from Australia, where a fisherman had pulled up a shark that had literally been bitten in half. It was a full-size shark. Something had literally taken in its mouth and bitten it in half. Now, which means that a shark is not an apex predator. That's the thing. There's something down there bigger and meaner than a shark, and maybe it's the meg, the megalodon, which is a huge shark which is said to have died out about 35 million years ago, but possibly might still be alive. And why not? Why not if there's a megalodon? Because there's a film called The Meg, which is about this thing possibly being alive. If it was, it's perfectly. I don't see why it should be. I mean, this is at least 4 times as big as the largest shark ever seen in the modern world. So just before you thought it was safe to go back in the water, this obviously, if it lives in the deep sea, we may not. It may be there and we don't know it's there, and it's feeding off whales and things like that. However, it's funny enough. I believe that there's more life down there than previously thought, because people always thought that the deep ocean was actually more. It's like a desert or an ice cap of the sea. People thought, oh, most of the life is on the coral reefs and in the littoral waters and near the beaches and stuff like that. That's where you get most of the fish and things like that. But in fact, the deep sea is far more rich in aquatic life than we previously thought. That we found this out when we found the wreck of the Titanic. The Titanic sank in 1912 in 12,000 feet of water. It took until 1985 to find it, and when they did, they expected it to be kind of cryopreserved, because there's very little life down there, they thought, and the water's very cold, so it'd probably be quite well. It'd be pretty much as we found it, and they expected to see it in perfect condition. What they found instead was essentially something that had been turned into an artificial coral reef. There was not only bacteria consuming the very hull, the metal in the hull, but there was fish, there was crabs, starfish, all kinds of a massive ecology down there. Now, if you get like small things in the sea, you get bigger things which eat them. So a small ecology like that is no reason why there shouldn't be an apex predator down there, which possibly we don't know about. Possibly something bigger and meaner than anything we do know about. So I'm very interested in things like this. I really am. Amazing stories, these, about sharks being attacked.
Big time, dude. Big time. And of course, we got into Nessie last night as well. And the evidence, or so-called evidence, that it's an eel we're dealing with. Now, I always go back to the whole supernatural kind of option. And it's something called the Kelpie, Scottish shape-shifting water beastie, right? And whether it's Kelpies or whether it's Loch Ness monsters, Scotland isn't the only place that you get these kind of creatures where you've got a body of water and you've got a monster kind of associated with it. Today we looked at Japan, something called the Issy. You've got something in America called Champ. This is a common kind of theme, isn't it, Ben?
Yes, very much so. I mean, the Loch Ness Monster is by far the most famous, but it's not the only one of its kind in the world. In fact, in any large body of water, you often find these kinds of mysteries, and the sea, of course, very much so. So these, it's kind of an out of sight, out of mind thing. It's perfectly possible in a situation where we can't actually explore much of the ocean. I mean, the ocean, you can't see very far through water. Radio waves do not penetrate the water. You literally have to go, you can use sound waves that with limited accuracy. That's what they found the Titanic with. But really, the only way you can really go down is to get some kind of submarine, go down there and look for yourself. And it's that can only really you can only really locate a small amount of what's actually down there. So every so often they run into these things. I mean, you see like divers, like there's a chap that Gary Heseltine knows, who was actually at one of his conferences. He was a diver on oil rigs, and it was his job to go down to over 200 feet of water, and he would have to like spend like a week decompressing every time. He had to live in a pressurized chamber during the
nightmare, man.
Yeah, and I mean he's no way was he drunk or taking drugs or anything, because you die if you did that. I mean, he's a true professional diver, and he was down there, and this really weird thing approached him, and it was brightly lit. It was a kind of strange object with glowing lights, and it moved past him and moved away. And it was weird because he passed all his medical tests, and he wasn't suffering from any hallucinations. You sometimes get, if you're a diver, you get like because he was breathing a special mixture of gases, which meant he didn't get like nitrogen poisoning. And it was like that. There's a film called The Abyss, which is very, very good.
Very good.
Yeah, is it James Cameron who made that film? It's the guy who did Titanic. Yeah, and it's about a group of deep sea divers who come across literally aliens that live under the sea. And it's possible there are aliens under the sea. They don't all come from outer space. Maybe some of them are already here, and they're coming out of the sea, because UFOs are sometimes seen emerging from the sea, like in the Shag Harbor incident, where UFOs basically went into the water and they became USOs, unidentified submarine objects or submergible objects. And that's almost as common actually as the UFO. And there's been seen throughout time. Even Christopher Columbus on his transatlantic missions saw lights coming out of the sea, and he reports it.
Because Clyde last night, he brought up David Faber.
David Faber,
yeah. And the incident where there was a black mass under the water, a torpedo was fired, and this thing basically took out the torpedo.
They very often, I mean, the case of the Nimitz incident is very interesting, because we know all about the Tic Tac object, which was actually a UFO. It was flying, but there was a large. The attention was first drawn to something just underneath the surface. A larger object just underneath the surface, and Fravor described it as like a reef or something underneath the surface, but it was in deep water. And this, I suspect that and the Tic Tac object were connected in some way. It's possible. I mean, I believe that aliens have already found us. You see, they're not. People say, when are the aliens coming? Well, they're already here. I think
there's a good chance they had a hand in putting us here. Part of me thinks.
Well, yeah. I mean, possibly they've been here as long as we have. Possibly they helped build us or design us. But if they're here, I mean, I believe they've colonized this planet. They have some kind of base, maybe on the moon, on the other planets of the solar system. But one of the ideal place you can hide is underwater. If you have the ability to travel under the sea, the best place to hide is underwater, with a base underneath the Earth's
And let's face it, Ben, if you've got something that can travel these vast distances in space or through interdimensional kind of realms, then a body of water, it's not really a biggie for a machine like that to go under. And like you say, what a perfect place to hide. And then last night we had a caller on the show as well. He came from ex-US Navy, and he'd been called in to attend when Fukushima happened over in Japan. And he was talking about when they were sailing on their way towards this massive thing in the water. And they actually thought it was an overturned boat. So they were getting ready to go out and see if they could help anyone get things sorted. And when they got closer, they realized, no, this was no boat. This was, say, 60 foot in size. And an absolutely massive squid. You know what I mean? You add on the tentacles onto that, this thing was absolutely massive. Now, you'd say that, the aliens coming to this planet, some of the things that live on this planet are pretty much alien compared to anything we know. And then you start looking at the great depths, the great pressures, and life thriving, like you said earlier, in conditions that we typically wouldn't think life should thrive. It just goes to show how life really is. It's strong, and it'll take ways, shapes, and forms dependent on the environment. It'll just adapt.
And we know from, like I was saying earlier about the Titanic, that the variety and depth of the ecology in the deep sea is far more than we thought. It is extremely cold down there. It's at this incredibly high pressure. We could never go down. I mean, we have to, it's like going into space, going into the deep sea. You have these submarines with extremely high pressure resistant hulls, which could go to that kind of depth, like the one that James Cameron did when he went to the bottom of the Challenger Deep. That's only but I mean, that's only, you go down there, you see one little little bit of sea, and you think you know it all. You don't. There's things down there that are adapted. The giant squid itself used to be a cryptid. For many years, people didn't believe it existed. They said, oh, it's old wives' tales or sailors' tales. People said we saw these giant things with tentacles. But the giant squid was discovered, and it's proved true, all the stories that the sailors had told about it. Now, sailors tell stories of other creatures. For example, the famous scene where people saw a creature jump out of the sea. They thought it was a whale at first, but then they realized it was like a crocodile. But it had flippers, big like seal-like flippers on its body instead of legs, and it crashed down into the sea again. Now, there really was a creature like that existed, and I can't remember what it's called. It has something Saurus. It was a kind of dinosaur, died out millions of years ago, apparently. But it looked exactly like this creature that these people saw. So, in the depths of the ocean, in the depths of the ocean, it could be that some creatures are down there are creatures that we think we know already through the fossil record, because we dug them up, and because we can't see them now, we assume they've died out. It's possibly Nessie's one of these things. Some people say it looks like a plesiosaur, which is like a marine dinosaur, and so it's possible that some of these dinosaurs existed. I mean, there was a fish called a coelacanth. It was caught by some fishermen once, I think in the Indian Ocean. And people said, well, we thought this had died 40 million years ago. We've got fossils of it. And then they pull up a live one. They realize it's still alive. Well, how many others are like that? I do think there's probably a lot more. I think we can't speculate when we don't know what's down there. We can't speculate and say for sure that these things do not exist. There's no reason to think they don't. And when people are seeing them and reporting them, we should take those reports seriously.
Absolutely. I say we release the Kraken right now. We just get the Kraken out and get on with it, dude.
I do wonder how much of these, not just the mythologies, but the modern literature that people know, either through psychic means or through secrets or what they've heard. Because, I mean, the bloop, this really strange noise that appeared in the South Atlantic Ocean, it was detected from 2 hydrophones. And they triangulated it because they had direction finding on both of them. And where it actually converged is exactly the spot that H.P. Lovecraft, in his famous stories, his famous weird and wonderful stories and fantasy tales, said that Cthulhu lived, the strange being with the tentacles on its face that lived under the sea. And I'm not saying that Lovecraft knew exactly what the bloop was consciously, but I just think it's an odd coincidence that the bloop actually appeared exactly where the Cthulhu was supposed to be.
But that's the weird thing. That's just, I don't know. But let's take a listen to it, because I've got it here. We'll take a listen to this thing that they call the bloop. Yeah, so there you go. There's a couple of kind of, I'm not sure if it was periodic like that. Was it just a one-off, Ben, or was it?
It was a one-off, and also that's very much speeded up. It was actually infrasonic. The actual, I mean, you hear it speeded up, and of course the pitch has been brought up so we can hear it, because it's actually took about 2 minutes, and it was infrasonic. Very powerful, very, very, very high amplitude waves, which makes you think, well, why the hell is it? And they don't think it's something like a volcanic or an earthquake-like thing. It's hard to know what it is, but it's so loud. I mean,
we'll try this one. Yeah, we'll try this. Yeah, speeded up and enhanced again, but that is weird, man. Very weird.
No, wonder what created that. I mean, it's hard. It's hard to tell. It's
What
really.
was
I
like
mean,
the official line? Did they come up with anything at all, Ben?
I don't think so. I gather it remains a mystery. I mean, they've obviously would try to eliminate it. They'd say, oh, it's some kind of underwater earthquake or a whale or something like that. But they say, no, it's not. It's none of those things. And it's so loud, could be to be heard 3,000 miles away. It's very loud indeed. Even for sound, which sound travels underwater much further than it does in the air. But it's still a weird thing, I think, Kevin.
Sound is weird underwater. I mean, even when you're in the bath, if your ears go below the water and you knock the side of the bath, it's a weird effect altogether. So it's quite hard to know just what that is. But I tell you what, there's so much that we don't know about our own oceans here, and it's quite sick, Ben, because we probably know more about the surface of Mars and the moon than we do about the Mariana Trench, for example.
We know more about the moons of Saturn and Uranus and Neptune.
Yeah.
I mean, the distant outer planets than we do about our own oceans. I know there's a lot of work being done to research oceans, and like the Oceanographic Institute, Bob Ballard, and people like that. But really, it's a very, very long, tedious, and tiresome process. It's going to take a long time to explore the oceans because the natural environment is very, very different. It's even more hostile than outer space. And you think about space is you can see through space with a telescope. You can't see through the oceans with any kind of electromagnetic waves or anything like that at all. You have to rely on sound and vision, and actually going down there in a submarine or with a camera and using vision. So who knows? The discovery might be made. We may find some creature down there. I mean, they are finding creatures down there all the time, new species and things like that. Maybe we'll see something really monstrous. Maybe an old dinosaur might be rediscovered. It could be that we'll find some kind of aliens and other things down there.
I'm open to the megalodon. I'm open to it because there's a big enough food supply. It doesn't need to come up. I mean, if it stays down there, you're going to have to be very accurate if you want to find it. And people say, no, Kev, with sonar and radar and everything else they've got nowadays, find anything. MH370, folks. Yeah,
well, yeah, exactly.
We've not found that.
Yeah, let's see how long it took them and how much it was a massive amount of effort to find the Titanic.
Yeah.
And that's so it just goes. Even a massive shipwreck takes a long time to find. And also people say, well, what would the megalodon eat? It couldn't be a lay because what would it eat? Well,
megalodon will eat whatever the hell the megalodon wants to eat.
And who says there's nothing down there for eat when you realise how rich the ecology is in the deep oceans? If it's much richer than we thought it was, then that kind of solves the problem, makes you realise there may be plenty for the Meg to eat. And of course, there'll be other creatures, maybe other creatures we don't know about that the Meg eats, other fish that we're not familiar with, maybe eats whales and things like that. Who knows?
And then you see these, like, I call them crazy fish, but it's only because I'm kind of lost for words. You see the ones with, like, lights hanging off their head. The creatures that are down at these depths. Again, it's like an entirely different planet. It's like a totally different world.
Yep, there's no light down there. You see, the sunlight only penetrates 400 feet down. You go below 400 feet, and you enter a period. It's permanent night. It's permanent nighttime. So a lot of things have luminous. They create their own light through luminosity. And again, if you can't see very far. I don't know how people can possibly claim that things like these ancient dinosaurs and sea monsters don't exist, when that we know so little about it. The skeptics often suffer from an awful lot of hubris, I would say, making claims about environments they know nothing about. Indeed, no one knows anything about. So I think we should withhold judgment until we have explored more.
Big time. And us being a little island here, I'm sure there's no shortage of stories of creatures around our shoreline. I'm sure all we need to do is go looking for them, and I imagine there'll be more bloops, there'll be more weird creatures, there'll be more mysteries for us as the years go on from the abyss. Absolutely. Now, when we come back after the break, we're going to be getting into, is it MI5 or MI6, and one of their head honchos saying, are they talking aliens, Ben?
Unbelievably, yes.
Wow. Now, I'm looking forward to getting into that, so please stay tuned for that. And in a very rare treat for all of you KBS lovers out there today, I will be rolling on into Joe Joseph's The Freedom Link right after this show, so please don't go anywhere. Joe Joseph will be coming up right after Ben Emlyn-Jones. And we've still got one segment to go with Ben, so Ben, let people know where they can follow you, man.
Hospital Porters Against the New World Order, hapanwo-voice.blogspot.co.uk is my website. Do check out my material there. Check out my book, Roswell Rising, a novel of disclosure and its sequels. If you like aliens and things like that, you'll love that book. And also check out my own radio show and my own YouTube channel, things like that. So
absolutely.
Now, for you.
I was actually worried, Ben. I didn't think I'd be able to get you on tonight. I thought you might be down in London taking part in the extravagant Extinction Rebellion protests that are going on. Not your cup of tea to go about with broccoli on your head? Or maybe like attempting to arrest broccoli in the streets, no?
No, I mean, I thought it was very amusing. I don't see the point of that particular brand of street theatre, personally.
No.
I mean, obviously, I'm concerned about the welfare of the environment, but I think Extinction Rebellion are controlled. They're controlled New World Order.
Indeed. Singing from the same song sheet. We'll be back after these short messages. Don't go anywhere. Yes, there we go. One segment to go, man. And like I was saying there, folks.
It goes quick, doesn't it?
Oh, it goes too quick. I will be continuing to annoy all of you out there after Ben has to depart. Joe Joseph.
I've just got to take a quick break.
No problem, dude. No problem. You go. I'll be here. Yeah, so after Ben goes away, I'll be gimping out or pimping out the set. I won't be doing anything to the stream. I'll just be getting Joe Joseph on here. He'll be coming in. And all of our members out there, you see the dude? We have got the hairy hand. Yes, he has just used the hairy hand. Robin Davies as well, throwing out some hairy hands. Anne gets excited every time I say hairy hands. So if I say hairy hands another 10 times between now and the break, you coming to see the hairy hand, Dan? There's the hairy hand there, look. Aye, look. There's the proper hang there, right? See, there's a proper hang there. And then I've cut it out and I've made it there, see? See? People think I'm talking to myself right now, you know that, right? Oh, look. Oh, look, there she is. Whoa, she was almost there. No. Yeah, no, we have not lost the cone. We don't lose the cone. No. We're at 100 members now, folks. We made it. Lich Gore was our 100th member today. So we got our new emoji. The hairy hands, it's something we've spoke about a few times. I know, Anne, I know, you had to be there. It's a very kind of on-location joke. If you didn't hear the hairy hands of Devon's story, then you're probably thinking Kev's a bit weird right now. But no. So yeah, if it's okay with you people out there, how about we add an extra hour on to today's streaming and I jump on with Joe and we just keep everything going here. Does that sound okay with you? I ask as if, I'm waiting for your response. It's rhetorical. You're stuck with me. You're not stuck with me. You can easily click out. I get that, you see. Yes, and the Fred Doe produced my little friend here, my little helper. Yes. Little cone-tastic. So yes, and obviously I swapped out the old cone for our new cone. Awesome. Yes, Jason, it's a man thing. One thing they can't take off us is our hairy hands. Although, if you'd seen some of my exes, you'd probably check them for hairy hands, I'm telling you. No, I'm only joking. Yes, let's do this, the dude says. Go for it. Okay. Ready for Joe. He'll be here in half an hour. Indeedy. Here he comes. Here comes Ben. Look at that 1984 T-shirt there. Look at that. I like the T-shirt, Ben. 1984, you say. Liking the T-shirt, man.
Oh, yeah, 1984. It's not supposed to be an instruction manual.
Love it.
Yeah, so I thought it was quite appropriate, for the show and everything.
Yeah, where'd you get that, man? Is that online or one of the conferences, or?
Oh, someone was getting rid of them and they asked me if I wanted them, a guy I know from the UFO conferences. So I said, yeah, sure, I'll take them off your hands. I've been wearing that a lot, actually, lately because of the Brexit situation. I thought it was very, very appropriate.
Yes, I think we might need to do a Brexit special in the near future. Maybe if they ever let us out, Ben. If they ever let us out, maybe we'll celebrate it on here.
It's one of these things that seems to be, it seems to be getting closer and closer, but we never get there. It's like Zeno's paradox,
Well,
You could go half the way to the next. You go half again,
right,
half again.
somebody in the chat room says, consider the supposedly made-up ancient creature called the Griffin. Every major ancient population around the world, separated by thousands of years, has the exact same depictions of them. How? We'll bring that up when we come back before we get to the MI6 stuff. Here we go. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Final segment of KBS. But then I'll be jumping on with Joe Joseph right after this, so never fear. Kev is always near. That sounds totally creepy. But during the break there, somebody brought up a very good point indeed. And it says here, and I'll ask you this, Ben, comes from King Sweet, somebody who's got a really disturbing attraction towards our very own Queen. I'm just saying, yeah, very disturbing, Ben. Ben's trying to think, what, somebody finds the Queen attractive? I know. That only happens on the Kev Baker show. So, King Sweet says, consider the supposedly made-up ancient creature called the Griffin. Every major ancient population around the world, separated by thousands of years, has the exact same depictions of them. How is that? Well, I would suggest that the Griffin was in fact something real. And there was many different stories about it because it was literally something that people experienced, Ben.
It's weird, isn't it? I mean, it's true. You get these therianthropes, which, therianthropes literally are where it's part human and part animal, but you get other species joined together. The griffin is a combination of a lion and an eagle. And you get other examples of that as well. And you think to yourself, well, where did they get the ideas from? And also, how do they come up with the same ideas as the gentleman in the chat just said? It doesn't seem possible by coincidence unless they were depicting a real thing. If, for example, dragons, a dragon again exists in cultures all across the world. And there's a very good book called Dragons More Than a Myth. It's written by Richard Freeman of the Centre for Fortean Zoology. And it goes into this, it asks this very question. You have a mythological thing, which again seems universal. And if it's universal, it may be because the people who basically who created the myth, were talking about something real. Either that or it's some kind of incredible coincidence. I know the skeptics just love coincidences, and it's an unprovable hypothesis, which is a fallacy, of course. So I would say, yes, we should consider that these are real things who either exist in the world, possibly in parallel universes, or possibly in the past, or maybe in areas of the world we're not familiar with, maybe underground, like those strange creatures in The Descent.
Yeah, and it's like dragons as well, right? Because dragons are spoken about everywhere. So where did these stories come from? Were they just like figments of the imagination? I certainly don't think so.
No.
I think we're talking real things here.
Yes. I mean, I have imagination. I make up things, but I don't think I imagine the same things as other people. I think everyone's imagination is unique.
Just see that Joe Joseph try to stir trouble in the chat room saying I'm a remoaner, a remainer. What is wrong with people? Do you people not listen to me by now? I know I don't talk politics much, but you must know I'm no fan of the EU. That's one of my major criticisms of Scotland becoming independent. The fact that independence would be somehow a union with the European Union. No, not big on that. And I'll sort you out after the break, Joe Joseph. But Ben, let's move on, right? Because there was another story you sent me today. We've spoke really quite a lot, more so in recent times than ever before, about disclosure. And we've looked at Tom DeLonge. We've looked at the Pentagon's ATIP program, Advanced Aerial Threat Identification program. We've looked at To the Stars Academy. And now we've got something happening in the UK as well. And it's not just anyone talking UFOs. Tell us what's happening.
Well, this is very interesting indeed, because there's been an interview in which a man said, I think it would be extraordinary if in an infinite universe the planet Earth was unique. And we wanted to say some more things about UFOs. Now, this particular, or aliens rather, to be precise, this particular person was Sir John Soares. Now, he's the former chief of the Secret Intelligence Service, MI6. So he was M, like M in James Bond, the guy who's in charge of the intelligences, which, of course, is a very, very prestigious position. Now, it's very, very odd that someone like him would bring the subject up at all. And so I do have to wonder why he happened to say that, and why he happened to say that at this particular time. To give him a bit of background, he's had a very prestigious career, and of course, head of MI6 is not something that it's not a job that anyone can apply for. He's been a diplomat for a long time. He was in the Foreign Office. Well, half of them are in it, like agents anyway. And he served at the United Nations, Syria, South Africa, and the European Union. And also, strangely enough, he's a member of the steering committee for the Bilderberg Group.
Oh, now that's interesting.
Now, the question is, why would he do this? And we've had more and more people saying things like this. We've had people such as Clinton and Obama and people like that saying things about UFOs lately. There's Bill Clinton, when he was a former US president, doing a speech about, in response to Ryan from Belfast asking about Roswell, an 11-year-old boy who wanted to know about Roswell. So, I mean, it seems like there's more and more people speaking out about this particular subject at a particular time, as if there's a climate of awareness of this particular subject at the highest levels of government. Steve Bassett has talked an awful lot about this, and what he has to, his insights, I think, are very interesting on this matter. So I really sense that the way UFOs are being addressed has changed. It's changed considerably, and I think it's changed since December 2017, when the ATIP revelations first began. I really do. I don't know why, but it appears that I'm not saying the cover-up is over, but the way the cover-up's been handling has changed. The strategy behind it is different. I'm not saying we're being told all the truth, but some reality has broken out, and it's being managed in a different way. So, I mean, unfortunately, Sir John didn't say any more and go into more details, but I'd be very keen to know what more he knows.
Big time. If there's one guy that does know, this is one of them, especially here in the UK. I'll just read a bit of this for the audience. Just kind of recaps on what Ben was saying there. This was from the 11th of October. I totally missed this one. The former head of MI6 has stated that he believes aliens exist, a view that's supported by more than half of Britain. And it's significant coming from the Sun, because as much as I don't like the Sun, and the Sun's very unpopular, but a lot of people still look at it, Ben. And this information about MI6 talking aliens, very important indeed. Sir John Sawyer's 64 is certain extraterrestrials are out there due to the infinite size of the universe. It says the Warwick-born ex-spy said it would be extraordinary if life only existed on Earth, and is adamant that we can't be alone. And as the chief of the Secret Intelligence Services from 2009 into 2014, Sir John told the Daily Star it would be extraordinary if in an infinite solar system, that planet Earth was unique. I think we should go forward on the assumption that nothing on this planet is unique. Very interesting, and that comes at the same time as we had NASA coming out and saying that get ready for an announcement about life on Mars, and then ... but we don't think people are ready for it. And that was in the Telegraph maybe a week or so ago. There's a lot going on with this kind of thing. That's why it's definitely it's great to see information coming out that we know exists, Ben, but at the same time, would you agree with me that it's doubly important to put your guard up and use your discernment? And even though it's information that ticks all the boxes that we think are there, and our confirmation bias is loving it, you know, it's the perfect time as well for agendas to be played on the back of it, and misinformation, disinformation to be inserted as well, right?
Oh, very much we should keep our guard up, very much so. This is indeed a possibility that we're leading up to some kind of fake disclosure. And in fact, fake disclosure, unfortunately, is probably the most likely form we're going to have, which is a shame, but it's a fact. It doesn't mean that it won't end up with real disclosure. In fact, in my book, Roswell Rising, a novel of disclosure, I actually address this very point. This sort of scenario does play out within the story. But it's likely it'll begin with some other level of deception. They'll say, it'll come on with this phrase, yes, UFOs are real, we're not alone, but, and then there'll be some kind of lie associated with that, which allows the government to spin the issue in the way it wants. Richard Dolan has talked a lot about this as well, and it's very interesting what he has to say about it. So it's funny because we have had, this is all come out at the same time as there's been some revelations about planets that have been discovered that may well have life. There's one called K2-18b. It's a star. It's orbiting another star. It's an exoplanet. It's not orbiting the sun like Mars, and it's been discovered. It has its analysis. It's been analysed. It's found that it has certain chemicals on it which are associated with a living world. There's also been some opinion polls posted, and you just mentioned that half of Britons agree, more than half agree with Sir John, that we're not alone in the universe. Not only that, but a very encouraging 20% of Britons believe, correctly of course, that the government know about aliens and are covering them up, which I think is it's wonderful, that is. It shows how many people, you know, maybe not everyone does think we're nuts, Kev. You know, there's a large number. Well, I think we're just a kind of like very vocal tip of a huge silent iceberg. So I encourage the rest of that iceberg, you 20%, you know, come on, start your own radio show, start your own
That's a really
blog,
good
start
way
talking
of,
about it.
it's a really clever way of thinking about it, you know, because I think that holds true. We're the most vocal out there, but I suspect more and more, especially the further we move into the future, Brexit, things like this happening, more and more people are going to be sitting there, maybe not as vocal as us, but yeah, they'll be silently nodding to themselves going, yep, yep. So I think that's encouraging.
Yes, when you see deceit being played, you realise, well, what else is wrong? If this is wrong, what else is wrong? This is what was going on after the Kennedy assassination, and the Warren Commission released its report. This, incidentally, was where the term conspiracy theory was first used, and it was put in by the CIA mind controllers who manipulate language. But people at the time were looking at this, and it was so obvious that something wasn't right. And in a sense, we see that now. We saw it with 9/11, and we're seeing it now with Brexit. I think Brexit is probably the most obvious example of this. And you do realise when you see this level of deceit, this level of obfuscation, this level of sheer stupidity among our elected leaders, and weakness, and heartlessness, cruelty, you think to yourself, well, maybe these people really are either they're idiots who don't know what's going on, or they are people with deep, dark secrets that they're not telling us, probably a mixture of the two. So this is extremely educational. All this is educating people. It's breaking through apathy, and it's rising knowledge, and it's rising an urge to do something about it. And I believe that it's at some point we're going to hit what's known as the critical mass, the 100th monkey point, when you'll see an exponential rise in awareness and indeed activism as a result of this. It'll go along gradually, slowly gathering pace till it hits a point, and then you'll see an exponential rise. It's going to be really, really amazing. So it's exciting. I'm glad whenever I see news stories like this, Kev, I get really, really encouraged, and I feel really, really happy because it's all it's all ingredients in the pot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, exactly. It's exciting times. And in my scenario, I've got kind of playing out in my head, we've got that James Webb telescope that's about to go live. And we'll literally be looking at potential exoplanets then. I think that's going to play another important stepping stone, as in, you know, look over here. Here we have a planet just like Earth in the Goldilocks zone, just hot enough, just wet enough, etc., etc. And then, you know, there'll be telltale signs. Maybe they'll pick up a radio wave, something like that, some radio signal. And that'll take us one step closer to something that the people that run this planet have known for so long now. And you can look at programs like Ancient Aliens. The ancient people knew more about aliens than we do, Ben, because it was quite a regular thing, probably, visitation back then. All in all, I think we're getting closer to being treated like adults and maybe graduating from this sandpit that we've been kept in, some say quarantined in at times, and maybe we're getting ready to go out there and do the Star Trek thing, man.
Yeah, I mean, the fact is that the rise in technology in terms of searching the heavens for strange planets and things like that is increasing. And indeed, I know Stephen Bassett and other people say this is a distraction from ufology, and indeed it is. a silly effort to investigate, as Stanton Friedman used to call SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. However, it is turning people's eyes skywards, and that might have a knock-on effect on ufology, because, of course, it's an obvious question. Suppose Tabby Star turns out to be it turns out to be a real artificial structure, as we talked about on the previous show about this star with what looks like a Dyson sphere around it, some kind of artificial structure. Of course, the question is going to be inevitably asked, like, we're humans, we're going into space. It's only barely over 100 years since the first aeroplane took off, and we're now building craft that can go to the planets. We're designing craft that can go to the stars. Surely there's creatures out there that may be more ahead of us, and they've built craft that can go to the stars, in which case, where are they? Why haven't they reached us? And of course, the answer to that, what's called the Great Silence or Fermi's paradox, is very simple. They have. And that is why I think the search for extraterrestrial intelligence may backfire and have a positive effect on UFO awareness, because the fact of the matter is the aliens are here. They've already reached us. I believe they've colonized this planet. They're doing it quietly. We don't know about it, but they are here. And sooner or later, we're going to find out. The government are trying to keep it secret. They've been successful up to a point, but it can't go on much longer. They're going to slip up. I mean, they slipped up, I think, very close over the Pentax incident. As we go to air this evening, I'm hearing stories about large aircraft activity in the West Country near Warminster, the famous UFO hotspot. And well, I don't know if that's going to lead to anything, but someone has contacted me literally before we came on air and saying, keep an eye on Warminster. There's a large amount of aircraft activity there. The government are moving in because something is going on there, because we know that government activity and UFOs go together. So obviously, you heard it first here on the Kev Baker Show from me. It just turned out to be that.
Yeah, and being Warminster, I have to throw in there that probably one of the most active military training areas in the whole of the UK. Absolutely. So if anything is going on there, I tell you what, they're in the right place to scramble some helicopters and probably a battalion, a brigade or two of troops as well, Ben.
Yes, like the Defence Training Estate on Salisbury Plain, which is hundreds of acres of Ministry of Defence land. Indeed, some of the skeptics say that's all the Warminster thing was. It was just flares and helicopters and things. No, the people in the area know what those things look like.
Exactly.
So it could be that we could be looking at a major UFO event. I don't know. I've been contacted by someone who was involved in the Pentax incident.
Like you say, anyone living in Salisbury, Warminster, they're probably more used to the munitions and the sounds and the sights of these war games than even the soldiers are, because these people live there 12 months of every year. Soldiers are only there a couple of weeks every year. They're used to the sights and the sounds and the smells. So if somebody down there is saying something different, that is quite key information.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm really, really keen to see where this goes, and we'll soon find out, I hope.
Well, I've had a director on the show here since we last spoke, John Sumple, and he's behind something called Extraordinary, the Seeding, and he talks to contactees, abductees, and people that have been involved in human-alien hybridization programs, Ben. Now,
I've heard of that.
Yeah, listening to some of the testimony of the people involved, I tell you, it's very harrowing. A lot of the time when people speak about aliens, it's very laughy, very jokey and things like that. But I tell you what, and they say it in this documentary as well, if even one of these people, like what they're saying is true, then there's nothing laughy, jokey about some of these aliens, Ben.
No, I think it's a real thing.
I think it is as well. Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah. Funnily enough, somebody actually contacted me a couple of days ago and asked me about this film, this film you just talked about. And I went and looked it up on IMDb, and I looked at the trailer and things like that. And so it's funny you brought this up now, and you interviewed the director of the film.
It's fantastic. It's really high quality, and it's been approached in a very serious kind of manner as well.
Because, I've known people who I believe are alien or alien hybrid. I believe I've encountered people who have, for example, who have unusual shaped heads, unusual facial features, and I think to myself, are they really human in the same way that I am? I know people do vary in their appearances and things like that, but there's just something very odd about them and the stories they tell and about their family history, of which sometimes I have knowledge of because I know some people behind the scenes and they tell me about the past and things like that, and it's I'm convinced that this is actually happening. There's a hybridization program. Much more the government know about it, and they're keeping it quiet again. But this cannot be kept quiet for much longer. These secrets will come out, and they're huge. They're bigger than Brexit. I mean, they're massive, and we will address them at some point, and we have to, because we have to move into a different kind of world where these things are no longer secret. It was that thought that inspired me to write my books on the Roswell series, and just speculating on how that might come about. So I'm going to write a new book now as well. So I'll let you know when that comes out.
Oh, very good, sir. Very good. But yeah, this abduction and this hybridization thing. I mean, some of the witnesses in there were talking about the actual process itself. And I'm not going to go into the dark and nasty details, but it's a reproduction program, so you can use your imagination, folks. And talking about reptilian entities. Somebody talking about them appearing Nordic. And I say appearing Nordic because when they got to like the side of them, like at a right angle to them, it was almost as if that was some kind of cloaking or something, Ben, because they said that started to almost pixelate. And I tell you, some of the stories, it was just, these people believe what they're saying, and I've got no reason to doubt them. And it makes you wonder why then. What the hell's the bigger picture here? Because this is the most important story ever.
I've seen people talk about reptilian shapeshifters and how some of these aliens are actually appear in human form. And now this has been a bit of a joke. I know they've taken the mickey out of David Icke for saying this. David is actually not the only person who's made this claim. He's just the most famous person to make it. But just how as bizarre as this story might sound, there is reason to take it seriously. I've heard many talks about people who will see other people suddenly change appearance, very often into a half lizard, half human form. And this pixelation effect you mentioned, that is actually a common recurring theme. The idea that somehow it's almost like some kind of visual field breaks down, some kind of visual illusionary field breaks down, like a hologram that suddenly goes wrong, and you're suddenly faced with a completely different thing that you see. Many people, including a very odd woman I met. Well, she wasn't odd. I think the fact that she wasn't odd was what's so odd about her. She was a very normal lady who actually was married to a man. She said who she used to be married to a man who turned out to be an alien, a reptile, a humanoid reptile. And oddly enough, she died actually in a few years later. I don't think it's suspicious. She was swimming in the sea and got out of her depth when she was on holiday once, like does happen. But she wrote a book, and I read it, and I was quite astonished by it. And to meet her and talk to her and realize that she was completely sane, and in many ways she was quite normal. She had a very normal job and really quite a normal appearance. And the only reason she was talking to me about this is because it happened to be at a UFO conference. And I probably could have got to know her or known her socially or professionally, and she would never have told me about this part of her life. And I would never have guessed that she experienced this. So it makes me wonder how many other people are having this experience and just not telling people about it.
Exactly. This isn't
they laugh at you, don't they?
Exactly. I mean, you would think maybe even seeing a UFO, some people might be apprehensive mentioning it. But that's circumstances there. You end up living with somebody or something like this.
Oh,
very. Well, who would you tell? And then another common theme as well was, that's horrendous, but the women being pregnant and then round about I think it was the 3-month mark, that them losing the baby, or at least it would appear they've lost the baby, but you come to find that, no, this is when it's basically taken back to the mothership, for lack of a better term.
I know somebody who this has happened to, and I tell you her story is she's a completely serious woman, and her story, I believe, she was pregnant. The pregnancy was confirmed by tests of the doctors, and then, funnily enough, after you say about the end of the first trimester, she just suddenly woke up and she had an abduction experience, and she then woke up and realised she wasn't pregnant. She went back to the doctor, and the doctor said, "I'm sorry, the initial tests must have been wrong, and we made a mistake." And indeed, that's the only way they can explain it. However, the fact of the matter is, these aliens who've been abducting her, they allow her to carry the baby, but the baby is then removed and continues its development in the alien world. And indeed, she has actually met and had encounters with her son, who was taken from her at that particular gestation. And she's given him a name, and she knows him, and she does see him occasionally when she has abduction experiences. And I know how upset it's incredibly upsetting. You can't even talk to her about it because she just breaks down and starts crying. It's a very serious matter. It is real, and it's not just a delusion of mentally ill people. This is again a perfectly mentally sound person, mentally normal. It's something that really deserves to be taken seriously and not joked about and laughed about. This idea of joking and laughing. I mean, I think it's ended with the ATIP thing, which I think is what's so interesting about ATIP. But the joking and laughing can actually be described as official ridicule and denial. And that actually dates back to a memo sent by Admiral Roscoe Hillencutter, who was the first head of the CIA. And he was writing about basically how to handle the UFO issue. And they came to the conclusion is just take the mickey out of it, make a joke out of it, and poke fun at everyone who talks about it. And that's a far better way of keeping secrets than put them in classified files and locking them away in safes in the Pentagon. Because if you make something culturally and socially and psychologically abhorrent, the secrets will just keep themselves. And I think it's only really literally in December 2017 when that strategy changed, and the original strategy dated back to 1947 seemed to be finally put aside in favour of something else. So this is why the last few years have been so incredibly interesting in UFO terms.
We are out of time. Don't go anywhere, folks. I'll be right back with Joe Joseph, but Ben Emlyn-Jones will be back with me next month at Panwo TV, and you can check him out at panwo-voice.blogspot.com. I'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Wherever you are, make it TFR. There we go, Mr.
Oh, that's fun.
Yes, there we go.
That was great fun.
And Harriet, I must admit, you made me smile there in the chat room. I caught a comment and they were talking about, there's people that say, how there's always somebody online, people who say that Elton John, actually, he pretends to be the Queen some days and the Queen takes the day off. I think that would be good. That would be good to see. It would be good to see. But Ben, I'll get in touch with you for a date for the show tomorrow, okay? Because I'm going to swap you out for Joe Joseph now, and we're going to go live on his one. But Ben, thank you so much for today, sir. It's been absolutely brilliant as usual.
You're very welcome, Kev. Thanks for having me on the show. Thank you to everyone who's listened. I really appreciate it. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening's broadcast, Kev.
I will do. And I'm going to try and not look at the chat, because if there's any more Elton John's shapeshifting into the Queen, I don't know how long I can do that. Okay, Ben, I'll let you go, brother. See you later, man.
Okay, take care, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And Harriet, I'm just having a laugh and a joke. I always single out one of the comments, something like that, to have a bit of fun, a bit of laugh. Let's just see now if I can find my good friend, Joe Joseph. See if he is lurking about here. The lurker himself. Yes, here we go. There we go. Joe Joseph, live on YouTube, my friend. Yes, how you doing, sir?
How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing very good. We've got 265 brilliant people in the room. Are you like sitting in the bottom of the ocean? Are you in the dark, dude?
I'm trying to get. Hold on, my light is. There we go. There we are. All right. Okay. I'm better now.
Awesome. So how's your day been, man?
Just ducky.
Just ducky.
Yes, very blah kind of day. It was damp.
Okay, so that means your roads were at a standstill, yes? Because the other day when it was raining, you showed me the roads. Everything comes to a standstill over there. People can't drive.
It's so I don't know if it must be me. Everywhere I go, Kev, it's crazy. Maybe it's American drivers. I don't know, but
probably
you see a raindrop, and they instantly feel compelled to drive into the closest guardrail they can find or person.
Yeah, one inch of rain usually does it over here as well.
Yeah, and the backup begins, and then it's all downhill from there. And then, my commute every day takes me through Hartford, which is the capital of Connecticut. And as messed up as Connecticut is, and I mean, this state is in terrible, terrible shape. Um, it's still traffic is nuts. So trying to get through Hartford during rush hour is just it's brutal, dude. So add rain on top of that, forget it. It's awful. So you just better have some good tunes and hope to heck you're driving an automatic.
So you need the Kev Baker Show playlist. Good
Oh,
tunes, you know?
got it. I've got it.
Man.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of those times.
That's what you
where
need in the
just-
car. Kev's porno selection.
Yes, of course.
Get that.
Yeah, the Black Label.
Yes. Was on Clyde Lewis last night, Joe.
How did that go, my man? How's Uncle Clyde doing?
You know Uncle Clyde. He is the man, the myth, the legend. Yeah, it was really good, man. I'm going to bring in the network for you, Joe. Here we go. And we might crash out here if we do. Just stand by, folks. We'll fix it.
Yeah, we'll fix it.
There we go.
And here we are. It is. What do you want to call this, Kev?
Overtime.
Sounds good to me. It is
KBS
overtime.
overtime, yeah.
And so we were discussing, we're just going to start discussing Kev's little soiree on the Clyde Lewis.
Loved it, dude. Loved it. 4 till 6 a.m. That's the only downside. So today I've been absolutely hanging out my behind. But it was worth it. Yeah, it was worth it. We got into talking.
How long were you on for?
2 hours. 2 hours, yeah.
Full 2 hours, huh?
Yeah.
So you basically upstaged the main show. So the opener comes out, right? The opener should never upstage the main event.
That was the last time I was on, man.
But somehow that happens with you and that pesky accent of yours.
I don't know. When me and Clyde start talking cryptids, I don't know. It's because I've listened to Clyde for years, so it's easy.
You know what buttons to press, don't you?
Exactly. But I think everyone enjoyed it. You know, we got into the Megalodon, we got into Kraken, Cthulhu, portals, the Nephilim, hybrids between the deep ones, the old ones, and humans.
So you're saying you had some woo-aria, did you?
It was absolutely fantastic, and Anne is now making me extremely paranoid because we've got a hovering helicopter outside the house.
Do you? That's good.
Not
That's
black,
good.
not black. I don't even need to look. It's
good,
blue and yellow. It's the local police. It's
The BBC?
nothing to do with me. I'd love to say it's because I was talking about the Megalodon and Nessie last night, but Police Scotland, they really couldn't give a damn. Not worthy of a police helicopter, dude.
Yeah, don't worry about that. Don't worry about that.
But
So,
you'll
hey,
need to come up. You'll need to come
stuff.
on Clyde with me one time, man. It's not the same without you there.
Well, the next time, tell me.
Next time I'll tell Clyde. I'll say, Clyde, that Joe Joseph, he keeps on crying. He has to get more man pawns for his mangina. And he has to pack them in. He gets all butthurt when he doesn't get on the show and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah, I lose sleep over it.
Yeah. Look, you can see Anne in the background. She lives. Look, she's real.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. What do you know? What's she watching?
She's
Anything
looking
good?
for the helicopter.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Maybe they're coming after her.
Tell you,
probably
dude. Be a
know the
brave
people-
SWAT team that comes in and disturbs Auntie Anne. Oh.
They didn't. You didn't hear that she actually has a secret identity. She works for El Chapo.
Dude,
See.
maybe she does. Maybe she's like 009, the new female Bond.
Could be.
Oh, how much would that hurt my mangina?
Probably a lot. I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Probably a lot.
So what have we
Yeah.
got for tonight, dude? I mean, I've been wooing it up with Ben Emlyn-Jones, where we're getting into sea creatures, deep underground military bases, the Bloop, all that good stuff. What have you got for us, man?
Let's see what I got in the old grab bag here. So I'm going to start off tonight with a little bit of, you know how politics has really turned into a reality TV show?
Oh, well, I would say that took place a long time ago. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, really, Trump cemented that whole thing because he came from reality TV and he was a pompous ass before. And then he goes into the White House and he's basically lost his mind, and whatever. Then you look at all over the world, and all of these governments are starting to kind of spring up and take on that reality TV-esque type mantra, if you will. And so anyway, maybe a couple months ago, I think it was, there was an op-ed that came out by an anonymous person that basically said, holy crap, guys, you really got to pay attention to what this asshat's doing. And now this person's coming out with a book. It's called A Warning by Anonymous. Now, it's interesting that they chose that word for the author of the book. And I say that because Joe Schmuckatelli walking down the street that just happens to be, and I think there are more people than not that are more on the independent side of things, more free thinking. I think there are more free thinking individuals or people that tend to think more for themselves than they have.
Sources are telling me,
I think that they chose that to highlight it as anonymous in such big words to hook those that would be what you would consider Trump supporters, because most of them, or a lot of them, are the ones that listen to Alex Jones, the ones that follow Anonymous. So not only do you have it, it's a warning by who? Anonymous. Who do what all the time? They give you a warning. So I think it was a brilliant, whoever's doing this, it's brilliant.
Yeah, this is the first I've heard of this, Joe. This is the first time I've heard about this, man.
Yeah, it just came out. It says the anonymous senior Trump administration official who in 2018's New York Times op-ed was called treasonous by President Donald Trump has written a new book about Trump titled A Warning. CNN has a cover of the book. You saw that. The author will remain anonymous, and sources familiar with the book tell CNN that elaborate precautions have been taken to protect the author's identity. The sources say that the publisher and the author's literary agents at Javelin were provided verification that the author is the same person who penned the op-ed titled, I Am Part of the Resistance Inside the Trump Administration. Now, this is interesting. Let me say this. It says here, the author of A Warning refused the chance at a 7-figure advance and intends to donate a substantial amount of any royalties to the White House Correspondents Association and other organizations that fight for a free press that seek the truth. So Latimer, who is the editor of the company that's printing this thing, added that the book was not written by the author lightly or for the purpose of financial enrichment. It was written as an act of conscience and of duty. So the royalties, and there was no advance, all of that stuff went to charity. So that's pretty heavy if you think about it, Kev.
Big time, dude, big time.
It definitely gives a sense of it almost validates it in a way, don't you think?
I do. And again, you point out that use of the word anonymous. Again, I totally agree with what Joe said there. They know exactly what they've been doing with the use of that word. Exactly what they've been doing.
Yeah, no, absolutely, dude. The interesting thing here is, and a lot of people are trying to guess who this person is, and no one can really figure that out, and for whatever reason, I don't know, but anyway, it's got old Donnie Boy there absolutely beside himself. He is so livid about this, and that's what I like to see. Is that I got to tell you, folks, and this is just my humble opinion, and this is why I don't really get into politics so much anymore.
Good man.
Is simply because it is
toxic.
It's not the path to change. It really truly isn't. It is not the way you're going to change things. And it's not the way to put your energy into it's totally and completely toxic and corrupt. It just is. And there's better ways to do things. Politics isn't the way. And this is a good example of that. So you've got all this drama going on that does nothing but foment division. You know, it does exactly what it's intended to do. So when you step out and step away from all that crap, you get to see it for what it is. And let me tell you something. When this last election took place, Kev, it was amazing to see people who I thought were really all about
seeing through the left-right paradigm.
Yeah. That and it just turned out they just hopped right back on that bandwagon.
Well, get ready because I think we're going to see more scores of people getting repoliticized this time round.
Now,
because
why do you say that?
I say that because last time they were able to do it. It wasn't a fluke. And we both enjoyed The Great Hack, that documentary where we've seen Cambridge Analytica. Now, that's one example of how our data enables them to tell exactly what kind of personality type we are. Whether you want to believe that or not, it's a thing. It's a tool. It's brought down governments. It's installed other regimes on the back of it. It works.
It works.
Now, if you think about that bigger picture, though, Joe.
Yeah.
You've got Steve Bannon, who was the vice president at Cambridge Analytica. And think of the show that I'd done with Lee Stranahan.
Yeah.
Where we were looking at these political operatives and people pretending to be MAGA, only they're not MAGA, things like that. And at the same time, we had the birth of the 17th letter of the alphabet.
Oh, jeez.
Now, Donald Trump himself and his people, his campaign, they were able to take data from Cambridge Analytica, and people, you might think they didn't use them. Well, Steve Bannon was like Trump's right-hand man, so it was there, okay? So they knew exactly what slogans, exactly what keywords to give Trump to say when he was on programs like, I don't know, maybe InfoWars? Those exact trigger words that people needed. And how did he know they needed them words? Because the data mined it from social media. And at the same time, whether connected or not, I don't think so, but the scammers out there that were attracting people to QAnon were using exactly the same method. They were identifying people that were just on the fence. You know, they'd already left the political game. They were a fresh vote. If you can target those people and turning them into a political voting bloc, then that's a very powerful thing. It's a very lucrative thing for bad actors like the ones pushing Q as well. But this time round, we've got so much more data on all of us. So they know every single one of us that bit better. So this time, the political kind of triggers and things that are put out there, they're going to be even more cleverly designed. They're even going to be more specific, and they're going to take a lot of people and convince them that, well, you know what, maybe this time I need to get back involved.
Oh, man, you know, that's it. It's the, you know, the boy who cried wolf. It's Chicken Little. That's the problem, is that I don't know how much more they can do this, Kev. I don't
know either. I don't know either before you have to go full-blown dictatorship, because the game's nearly up.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I don't understand how you can keep going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and just have people buy into it. Eventually things are going to not to mention there's some other things that are happening that make me wonder, you know, are we close to some sort of change, some sort of event, if you will? Let me go to this right here, the mirror. Now, back in 2008, I remember seeing some videos of testing going on of invisibility cloaks for uniforms and clothing, and basically it was material that can bend light around objects, right? So interestingly enough, there is a video here, Kev, of a scientist that is really kind of going out and showing some of the ways that this stuff works. And it's amazing stuff. You could wrap or put a house, envelop a house in this, and no one would know it was there.
Yeah, I'm just getting it here, Joe. I've got it there. Yeah.
It's amazing. It says here, from Harry Potter to Star Trek, invisibility cloaks are staple features of many science fiction blockbusters. But now, one tech firm has made the futuristic technology a reality with its own invisibility cloak dubbed Quantum Sheath. Oh, I like that name.
Big time.
It says here, researchers from Hyperstealth Biotechnology Corp have developed a light-bending material which they can claim can hide a person, a vehicle, a ship, spacecraft, and buildings.
Damn, dude.
Yeah, the material's paper thin and doesn't require a power source, according to Kai Kramer, CEO of Hyperstealth. And best of all, the material is said to hide objects in not only the visible spectrum, but also in the UV, the infrared, and shortwave infrared. Damn, making it badass. A broad invisibility cloak.
So now we're talking about this being criminal friendly, because, usually they'd have the FLIR camera on the helicopter, they'd see the heat signature, stuff like that, you're caught. You get this wrapped around you, Joe.
Oh my gosh, it's unbelievable. It says here, one piece of quantum stealth can work in any environment and any season at any time of day or night, something no other camouflage is capable of. Hyperstealth has purposefully remained tight-lipped about how the invisibility cloak actually works. Duh. Speaking to Lad Bible, Mr. Kramer explained, "I'm excited to finally be able to speak about something that I haven't been able to for the last, 9 years?
9 years, dude. Oh, man.
Hey, well, that says a lot. Now think about that just for a second. Now, I said 2008. That was the R&D testing. So that means for the last 9 years or so, this stuff has been out there.
Good point, Joe. Good point.
Oh boy, oh boy.
So if you ever thought you seen that predator effect in the park, that kind of shimmery kind of light, there's something there, but it's not there. You might just have seen this dude out practicing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It says here, my first choice was to keep quiet about the technology and allow only allied forces access.
Oh, indeed, said the DARPA man.
Yeah, but with the release of the patents, everyone can access how to reproduce it, and that's not necessarily a good thing. On his website, he added, "It didn't take long for me to anticipate the nightmare scenarios that this material could offer a rogue nation, a terrorist cell, or even the criminal element. It remains unclear whether when Mr. Kramer plans to use the invisibility cloak."
He went big early, didn't he? He went he started at a rogue nation, and then he got to the inevitable, criminal. Most people would have said, criminals will love this, maybe terrorists, and then you get to the rogue nation, perhaps. But no, being a friend of the allies, he knows the rogue nation is the one to worry about.
Yeah. I mean, that's this is pretty crazy stuff. So
Harry Potter is going to love this, man.
Yeah.
J.K.
That's
Rowling.
horrifying. So that's why I say, Kev, if we're to this point where not only can you not, so you can't believe what you see or hear on the internet. Now you can't believe what you see in front of your own two eyes.
Now
you know what I'm
you can't
saying?
believe what you're not seeing, or you have to believe what you're not seeing.
You can't believe what you see. It's nuts. Nothing is real.
It's how much more weird can it get? How much more novel? Terence McKenna used to talk about that novelty factor, right? When it was like Time Wave Zero. And again, Time Wave Zero, it ran out 2012, whatever. But it's that novelty factor. I mean, you look at where we are right now. I mean, how much further can it go?
I don't know. I have no idea. That's the point. Is you have all these capabilities that exist, and it's like the old saying goes: once it's been seen, it can't be unseen. So once this stuff is out there, it's just like being on the internet. You could put something up on Twitter for 5 milliseconds, oh crap, take it down. Somebody's got it.
It's like those holes that they punch into other dimensions. It can be there for
Yeah.
a plank of a second, you know.
But it's always there.
Yeah, it's always there. It's happened, so it's there.
That's right. And that's my point. So once this stuff exists, it's there. It's not going away. Especially that.
You can hide behind your invisibility cloaks, but it's all still there. Yes.
That's right. Yeah, so I mean that's kind of crazy, you know, when you think about that and then you look at humanity and say, okay, well let's see. How many people would use this for a noble pursuit? Right?
What noble pursuit is there?
I don't know. I'm just saying, you know,
give it to somebody agoraphobic so that they can leave the house and nobody will see them.
Wrap urban blight, you know, maybe. With this stuff, make it invisible.
Yeah, wrap it around Chelsea Clinton's head. Make it like something you'd look at. You'd probably spend more time looking at what appeared to be her kind of torso, her headless torso, than her actual head.
Ange just said, "I'll bet you see the number of miners go missing." You know.
You mean just walking down the street and then all of a sudden they just blip out of existence because somebody's put a big bag on them?
That's it, and then they're gone.
Oh, now that's sinister, Joe.
Carrying away to Bohemian Grove.
No, I want to get that fabric and put it all around a bike and then cycle down the road.
Could you imagine?
People would be, what the hell?
Wrap in that and then just ride it?
Yeah.
I could see that.
Yeah.
People be like, holy mackerel.
Put your trousers in it as well. You'd just be like a torso holding the hand. No handlebars. Waving at people. How you doing? I think that'd be pretty cool, man.
That's pretty, yeah. Oh, I mean, the practical joking side of it is endless. I mean, you could have, it's like, it's akin to farts. It's the joke that never gets old, the invisibility cloak, because I mean, you could do anything, anywhere, at any time, and no one would know. You know?
Sorry, Scott Lopez messaged me there.
Opposite side. This is what makes the brain's input so good. She goes, "It's not a joke. It's like joking around with nuclear energy."
Boys will be boys.
That's what he just said. Boys will be boys.
The more toxic the boy.
Yes, the more toxic the boy, the more crazy the stuff.
I can hear her. She's getting angry now. She's going to come over here and sort me out.
Yeah, she's getting angry.
Yes, indeed.
All right, I got some more stuff here. Let's go to something that's not going to anger the brain. It says here, the sun. Let's go to space, shall we?
Yes.
So there's a red plan. That's right. Humans could land on Mars by 2035 thanks to manned moon missions in 5 years. As NASA's chief is claiming, they say 5 years they're going to be on the moon. That's right. If we're accelerating the moon lander, said Mr. Brizendine, we are accelerating the Mars landing. Dun, dun, dun. I mean, are they serious? Does the government ever do anything on time? Oh, I guess, they kind of did the whole going to the moon the first time they made it, in the time that Kennedy promised by the end of the decade. And it was literally the end of the decade. They only had 6 months to go, but by cracky, they did it. So, I mean, if we're going back in 5 years.
2050 then?
What do you think? 2050?
Nah, I think they'll be going back. Yeah.
That long?
No, I think they'll be going back pretty soon. Yeah. Pretty soon. Why? Because I think they're going to start rolling out some of the tech they've got.
I still don't think we're going to be able to. I just don't think we're going to be able to survive. I don't know if flesh can make it that far, dude. I mean, it's like it's kind of crazy out there.
I know.
A lot of radiation. Flesh and radiation don't mix.
No, definitely not, Joe. Definitely not. It doesn't go down well.
I'm saying we haven't exactly been spliced with La Cucaracha. Say that they aren't probably doing it already.
I was going to say maybe Ventnor's having a go with Elon Musk. You never know, man.
As a matter of fact, perhaps that's why you have these different types of interdimensional beings and things like that, perhaps they were all like us, but were genetically manipulated to withstand the hostile environment of space. So perhaps our cockroach astronauts are human roach 2.0, a hoach.
The Roach Squad.
The-
Roach
right.
ship troopers, man.
roach ship troopers.
Dude, come on.
How else are you going to do it? You're going to shield it? You know, you're talking about massive amount of, you're not talking like ultraviolet rays. You're talking gamma rays, man. You know, you're talking about like, if there's like a CM, coronal mass ejection, a CME, you're cooked. What are you going to do? And then you get there, and Mars doesn't have quite the atmosphere that Earth does. And gravity's not.
Joe's connection definitely isn't what it used to be.
What's that?
I was saying your connection isn't what it used to be either. I think you're on your way to Mars.
I am on my
Are
way.
you approaching the Lagrange point, you know? Just in between the Earth and the Moon right now. You're getting to that sweet point. We'll get comms back in a minute, folks. He's just going round the dark side of the moon right now. It's okay. He'll be back soon. Joe.
Hello.
Are you still there? You are still there for now. Well, that's comforting to know. Folks, we'll be back in just a moment on the very, very, very strange Freedom Link. We will be right back. Yes. Are you back with us now, Joe?
I think so. Am I? I didn't even know I was gone.
Oh, you were sounding like some kind of robotic chipmunk.
Oh, yeah, it happens.
Yeah, the hamsters were in, man.
So yeah, I truly think that that it's a one-way ticket, dude.
You think so?
If you go to Mars, you're lucky to make it, and then if you make it there, you're not coming back. And if you do, you're going to have the tumor the size of a grapefruit coming out of you.
The size of Godzilla on your shoulder.
You know what I mean? So I guess wear your GoPro and get as much footage as you can and do as much for science as you can.
Oh, you'd have a wicked YouTube channel, wouldn't you?
You might. What's that?
You'd have a wicked YouTube channel, wouldn't you?
Sure you would.
Damn, dude, yeah. GoPro from the surface of Mars.
You get cooked. And then, I'm just saying, dude, it's not what it's hacked up to be. Let's just say this. The dirt is always redder on the other side of the fence.
I think it's doable, man, I do. Whether we have to nuke the place to get an atmosphere going, whether we live off-world for a while, maybe, in near Martian orbit while we...
This, how would nuking the planet create an atmosphere?
It would actually release some of the gases and put some of the components needed to make the atmosphere a bit more Earth-like. There you go. It was talked about lately, Joe.
Is that right?
Yeah. It was I think it was Elon Musk talked about it.
I know. I remember hearing Musk saying something vaguely about it, but I didn't know he actually put any thought into that.
Yeah, I don't think he went too far with it. There it is, space. Looks like Elon Musk.
Share your screen, will you?
Yeah, 2 secs.
I don't have an answer for that.
Oh, shut up.
There you go. Yeah, it looks like Elon Musk is serious about nuking Mars. I'll send you the link here. Oh! There we go.
Oh, my God.
In memory of Cheddar
nice.
2014 to October 22nd, 2019. My big orange feline buddy. You are and always will be my friend. I will find you there.
Yeah, unfortunately, dude, my heart goes out to you, man. His family lost the actual family cat today, Joe. So, it's always hard.
Worst.
Yeah. So, big shout out to you, dude.
Yeah, I got to be honest. I was always a dog person, right? And then I met the brain, and the brain woke me up to the wonders of the feline. And I have, even though we still have a dog, It is much nicer. The cat. Cats are cleaner. Cats go in the litter box. Cats like love. They're not obnoxious, and they
mine
leave
is
you
slightly
alone.
obnoxious. Cats
You know?
are cool. They're like royalty, dude. They know
They're
they were
very
royalty at
nice.
one
Yeah,
point.
yeah. They got class. They got pizzazz.
Mhm. Yeah. I'm glad to see that Ange was the one that inducted you into the ways of the feeling.
No, I got to be honest with you. I never really got into cats before then. I didn't think much of them.
Indeed.
But boy, do I now.
That's because you spent far too much time on a ship surrounded by all those sweaty-ass men, Joe.
Yes.
That's what
Yeah.
it is.
Are we bringing back the...
I'm looking at it. Here we go. Stand by. Get ready. The mothership calling. Beam us up, TFR. You're in.
Yes, here we are. It is a wonderful day in the neighborhood here. As we're talking about Mars and the fact that humanity is just not going to make it there. I don't buy it.
Where's your pioneer spirit, somebody's saying over here? Joe, where's that pioneer?
Give it a shot. Go ahead. Knock yourself out. But I don't know what the point is. You know, I really, truly don't. But they say, hey, nuking Mars. Says here, thanks for this, Kev, space.com. Looks like Elon Musk is really serious about nuking Mars. Okay. Says here, SpaceX billionaire founder and CEO teased the idea in 2015 during an appearance on the Late Show with Stephen Colbert, explaining that vaporizing Mars's ice caps would be a good way to warm the planet enough for human colonists to live relatively comfortably. What a great way to say it, too. Just nuke the ice caps and you can live relatively comfortably on Mars.
It's a small price to pay, Joe.
Small price to pay. Musk floated the concept again last week via Twitter, initially saying simply nuke Mars and then t-shirt soon. Yeah. Let's see here. It says Mars, he tweeted this, nuke Mars refers to a continuous stream of very low fallout a few atmosphere to create artificial. Wow. Much like our sun, this would not cause Mars to become radioactive.
See, it's okay, man. It's okay. It's a good plan. It's valid.
Wow. Says not risky, in my opinion, and can be adjusted and improved real time. Essentially need to figure out most effective way to convert mass to energy, as Mars is slightly too far from this solar system's fusion reactor, the sun. He added in another tweet, responded to someone who asked about the risks associated with the terraforming plan. Indeed, Musk engaged his followers in significant discussion about the idea, as he frequently does on Twitter. For example, somebody suggested employing solar dirigible airships on the red planet to increase solar power and heat generation. Trickier than it may seem on Mars, as atmospheric density is 1% that of Earth and gravity is 38%, but doable for localized warming, Musk responded. Astrophysicist and YouTube personality Scott Manley, do you know that guy?
No.
Okay. Suggested diverting a few comets, yes, to impact the Martian poles. I have never. Yeah, I know. It's crazy. For how the hell has anybody ever diverted a comet before? I mean,
no. Maybe Scott Lopez, who's here with us now, maybe he's diverted a comet or two.
Scotty, have you ever diverted a comet before?
Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's nuke Mars. I'm ready.
We can't even get it right here. We're gonna go nuke another planet now.
Hey, we got to get rid of these, excess nuclear weapons that have proliferated across the planet. What better way? Let's let's dump them all off on Mars.
Detonate them all.
Let's hit the north and the south pole of Mars. Let's get that water flowing. It might be a little bit of, there might be a little bit of a Fukushima after effect going on there, but hey, it's nothing.
That's what I'm saying.
The solution to pollution is dilution, my friend.
If they have cockroach already spliced into them.
Well, I was going to say the solution to that kind of pollution might be Craig Ventnor.
Craig Ventnor.
Give us some cockroach, man. Who knows?
They just send their consciousness to the husk on the other side, to the one that's printing.
I mean, isn't the surface of Mars already irradiated? What's a few more rads?
Exactly.
Is that the Martian Wigner effect?
Stop questioning Elon. Elon knows what's best. He's the brains. He knows what's up.
So Starship lands, right? Boom, it lands. That they haven't even thought or considered Wigner.
Oh,
Get Popeye as a consultant.
Look at Joe. He's getting wiggy with it, man.
That's right. I'm going to have to get wiggy with it on this one. Well, they say that it has to be the moon first, and then it's Mars. Well, of course, Bezos unveiled Blue Origin is going to actually work in cooperation with Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, and Draper. So now it's a joint venture that's going to basically oversee NASA's moon mission. So
can I just say that he is if there's a candidate for somebody wearing a skin suit that isn't from here, Jeff Bezos is
with
up
every
there.
kind of change within the family or with every.
Well, I'll close that because it doesn't have an option to pause it.
Bezos definitely has that. What is it? Remember the cult
scientist look, or even the Hunchback of Notre Dame without the hunch.
Remember the alien cult that all killed themselves? The UFO cult.
Devil, was that at Heaven's
UFO
Gate?
Cult? Yeah, Heaven's Gate.
Yeah, he looks like the Heaven's Gate guy.
Susie, thank you.
Love you guys.
Love you too. Yes, and if we look at Mr. Bezos here, I don't know. You remember the TV show Fringe, and you had the bald guy that was the observer? He was out of time. That's Bezos, man. And the older he gets,
give him a few more years. Give him a few more years. Heaven's Gate.
Yeah, the more ripped he becomes, man. I don't know. He's got something going on there, and nice black and white tie. Obviously a Mason. Just saying. I'm just saying.
You had to go there. Where's Lothar?
Exactly, dude. So yeah, I don't know.
I gotta say this. We could, in theory, solve this problem really simply. If we want to figure out if this is going to work, we load them all on a couple of starships.
You say they? You mean the Bezoses and Musks of the world?
All of the billionaires. Load them up. Ship them out. You want it? You can have it. Go get them, boys. Tell us how it works out for you.
But only after they've built a massive transporter that can hold every single SJW that they've weaponized here on planet Earth as well. Because they can go with them. We ain't dealing with those people that they've brainwashed. No way.
Are you kidding? That's when we use our invisibility cloaks.
Is that when we start making the Georgia Guidestones law?
Next thing you know, voila, 500 million.
In perfect harmony.
Perfect harmony.
At Bohemian Grove.
And no SJWs.
Back to two genders. Biology's a fine thing.
Yeah, two genders.
Yeah.
Kumbaya.
A rainbow is back to just being a very interesting effect of light going through a raindrop,
Telling you, man.
Simpler times. Yeah, simpler times, dude.
Yeah. So anyway, Jeff Bezos, of course, he's got the Blue Origin thing, and then Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, Draper. Listen to this. It says here the coalition plans to build the system for NASA's Artemis program, which plans to send U.S. astronauts back to the surface of the moon. Artemis has recently been accelerated with the Trump administration tasking NASA with landing astronauts on the surface by 2024. Blue Origin is the group's prime contractor, leading the program management and mission assurance. Bezos' company will also provide its lunar lander called Blue Moon. Lockheed Martin will build the vehicle that will then return the astronauts from the surface of the moon, also known as the ascent element. That Lockheed's vehicle will be reusable, and Lockheed will also lead operations and training of the flight crew. Then there's Northrop Grumman, who will provide a vehicle to bring the landing system into position in lunar orbit, called the Transfer Element Vehicle. And then Draper, the Cambridge, Massachusetts Research and Development Organization, will lead development of the descent guidance system as well as provide flight avionics. So there you go. You got all the heavy hitters now getting together to siphon a bunch of money from the government. So there you have it. And I got news for you. It's just getting started. You're talking billions and billions and billions of dollars that are just going right into the coffers of these mega corporations.
It's wild, man.
Yeah.
Well, I should give the owners of Blue Moon Beer a little bit of advice and go ahead and file that lawsuit against Amazon and Bezos for taking the Blue Moon trademark. Maybe they can do something there. But,
Yeah.
No, but you're right though, man. I mean, like
it's crazy, man. Look at this. It's all going right to your same contractors that build the missiles, that build the ships, it's all the same. It's military technology.
Wow. It's all the military industrial complex. The same characters, the usual suspects are all involved in this, which whatever. Would you rather have the military industrial complex working on getting us into space and doing space endeavors, or to continue building weaponry? But they're doing both. But
very equal
they're doing
opportunity.
both. Yeah, right. Equal opportunity. Yeah.
So they're going to weaponize space.
Yes.
Or they're going to fill their coffers on the grounds of weaponizing space, Joe.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It'll
be under the guise of space exploration, getting everyone off planet, and we're exploring this, exploring that. But what's really going to be happening at these moon bases? What are they really going to be setting up there?
They'll be putting nukes up there or something, or lasers or whatever. They'll put something up there that I'm sure will be used to monitor or the God only knows. There's so much that we aren't being told. It's ridiculous, and we wouldn't.
How much energy? Well, I was just wondering how much energy loss, at distance occurs with a laser weapon. You know what I mean? I know that they just did a test. I think it was either Northrop Grumman or Lockheed Martin. They just did a laser weapon test where they basically burnt through the engine block of a pickup truck from over a mile away. I wonder what the energy drop off is for a laser weapon. How far can it go before it's not effective, right?
In a vacuum? I mean, think about it. It's a vacuum. Yeah. So I would have to imagine.
So if you were to use the moon as a weapons platform, let's say.
Yeah.
And you place a laser weapon on the moon, and you could aim it anywhere on the Earth's surface, from the surface of the moon.
Yeah.
I mean, how easy would it be? It would be almost impossible to destroy that unless you could find a way to send some kind of a missile to the moon and target that exact location. You're dealing with a weapons platform that is basically impervious. Yeah, untouchable, basically. So
that's right.
Those are the kind of things people need to think about when you're dealing with these military industrial complex companies getting involved in, going to the moon and building bases and facilities and stuff like that. I mean, what kind of weapons platforms could they put up there?
Anything they want. Anything they want, And think about this. I don't know how it is over there in the UK or Europe or whatever, but here in the United States, our infrastructure is crumbling.
Oh,
There's
same here, dude.
bridges collapsing, and like once or twice a year, you see these news articles of, oh, the I whatever bridge in Minneapolis has collapsed.
Now, I must
Killing
admit,
blah blah blah.
I must
And
admit, Joe, it does appear like that stuff. Yours is probably worse than us. But at the
Yeah,
same
probably
time, I mean,
so.
our roads, everything. I mean, there's not a road in Britain isn't like Swiss cheese with potholes and things.
How many bridges can you build, and how many roads can you pave with all the money we're wasting doing that stuff?
Good
You know what
point,
I
man.
mean?
Good
Think
point. I know. I know.
ridiculous. And I know a lot of people say, wow, no. You take care of the stuff. You take care of home first. That's what you're supposed to.
Charity begins at home.
Yeah, I don't.
Yep.
I'm all for learning. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, we have the technology now to where you don't have to send men over there. Just send probes. Send drones. You don't need any of that. Why? Why bother?
Dude,
I don't get.
if they need somebody to go, just freeze me. Just put me on freeze, send me up there, thaw me out, put me on a timer.
A cannon.
Yeah, if you want, man. I'm probably small enough. I could be like a projectile.
Yeah, for a collision course, and then as you enter the atmosphere,
You could be like a cone on my head, like a cone, so that I'm like aerodynamic for going through the atmosphere. Yeah.
And as soon as you get into the atmosphere, it deploys those bubbles, poof, and then you just bounce until you stop.
Deploy cones, obviously, with everything that's going on in the show lately.
right.
It'd be rude not to.
You'd have to have a cone somewhere.
Absolutely. A conical spacesuit.
Yeah. I've got this other thing since we're talking about NASA. Did you know that the ozone hole is the smallest on record since its discovery this year?
Ooh,
wow.
That's all that money Al Gore's been plugging it with, right?
Man, they took everybody's asthma inhalers away. And now look.
Did you let Greta know? She might get some of her childhood back.
It worked. Yeah, right. It says here abnormal weather patterns in the upper atmosphere over Antarctica dramatically limited ozone depletion in September and October, resulting in the smallest ozone hole observed since 1982.
Woo! Can we have our old fridges back? Can we get those CFC gases back? I don't even know what they were, but they were cool. Fridges were
good.
cool.
Let's get them back.
Yeah, man. Fridges were good back in the day.
I eat them for breakfast. It says the annual ozone hole reached its peak extent of 6.3 million square miles on September 8th, then shrank to less than 3.9 million square miles for the remainder of September and October. And during the year, with normal weather conditions, the ozone holes typically grow to a maximum area of about 8 million square miles in late September or early October. It says it's great news for ozone in the southern hemisphere. You see that? Scientists get excited over the dumbest stuff. It says, oh, look at Paul Newman. Wow.
Wasn't he an actor?
He was an actor. He died, but apparently he's reincarnated as chief scientist for Earth Sciences.
People out there are going to say that's a crisis actor now. He's a crisis actor, dude.
That's right. He's a crisis actor turned scientist. But it's important to recognize, he says, that what we're seeing this year is due to warmer stratospheric temperatures. It's not a sign that the atmospheric ozone is suddenly on a fast track to recovery. Oh, drat, Paul Newman. Ozone is a highly reactive molecule comprised of 3 oxygen atoms that occur naturally in small amounts, roughly 7 to 25 miles above Earth's surface, in a layer of the atmosphere called the stratosphere. The ozone layer is a sunscreen, shielding the planet from potentially harmful ultraviolet radiation that can cause skin cancer and cataracts, suppress immune systems, and also damage plants.
But the same stratosphere that we like bang our signals off of when we're bouncing over the horizon comes.
That same one that we do that, and we heat up.
Yeah, we tickle it, we spray it, we massage it. Yeah.
Yeah,
well, if you excuse me, guys, let me go grab my huffer full of Freon.
That's right. Have some back some R12. Yeah. Says here the Antarctic ozone hole forms during the southern hemisphere's late winter as the returning sun's rays start ozone depleting reactions. These reactions involve chemically active forms of chlorine and bromine derived from man-made compounds. Drat. The chemistry that leads to their formation involves chemical reactions that occur on the surfaces of cloud particles that form in cold stratospheric layers, leading ultimately to runaway reactions that destroy ozone molecules. In warmer temperatures, fewer polar stratospheric clouds form and they don't persist as long, limiting the ozone depletion process. So NASA and NOAA monitor the ozone hole via complementary instrumental models and methods. Says satellites include NASA's Aura satellite and the NASA-NOAA SUMI National Polar Orbiting Partnership Satellite and NOAA's Joint Polar Satellite System. Holy moly, they got a lot of satellites looking at this thing. Anyway, the Aura satellite's microwave limb sounder, ooh, that sounds cool, also estimates level of ozone destroying chlorine in the stratosphere. Man, I wonder where that comes from. Chlorine. Says here at the South Pole, NOAA's staff launched weather balloons carrying ozone measuring samplers, which directly sample ozone levels vertically through the atmosphere. Now, most years, at least some level of the stratosphere, the region of the upper atmosphere where the largest amount of ozones are normally found to be completely devoid of ozone. But this year, dun, 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 they didn't show any portions of the atmosphere where the ozone was completely depleted. Woo!
I'm still trying to get over the fact that Noah from the Bible is camping out down at the Antarctica. Who knew? Who knew?
So are they implying? Are they implying that
is they've created global warming, and that's fixed the ozone problem?
Yes, I was about to say that they're implying that global warming is fixing the ozone layer.
So they want us to fix global warming, which would go back to destroying the ozone layer.
Won't get as much ozone depletion. Therefore, global warming fixes the ozone problem. How do you like that?
I like it.
And,
who knew?
And it is very possible for it to repair itself because lightning creates ozone, right? And so the more storms we get, the more lightning we have flashing around in the atmosphere, that will basically fix the ozone problem.
Yeah.
Come on, bring on that global warming. I want some more of it.
That's right. So I've got one more thing here really quickly. According to Stat News, there's a new CRISPR tool. It's never good when they have new CRISPR tools. That has the potential to correct almost all disease-causing DNA glitches. Well, maybe that's a good thing. It says here, a new form of the genomic editing tool, CRISPR-Cas9, appears to significantly expand the range of diseases that could be treated with the technology by enabling scientists to precisely change any of DNA's 4 letters into any other and insert or delete any stretch of DNA, all more efficiently and precisely than any previous versions of CRISPR.
No, man. Whoa. So they're taking like the basic nucleotides and you can change an A into a G, a T into a C.
Yeah, they can. That's pretty interesting. Crucially, scientists reported on Monday it accomplishes all that without making genome scrambling cuts in the double helix, as classic CRISPR and many of its offshoots do.
So you don't snip and copy and paste anymore. You just turn one switch on and it becomes something else.
Yeah.
Wow, man.
Isn't that so? Yeah. If you want to think about this from a coding perspective, right?
Yeah.
This would be like, instead of copying and pasting gigantic blocks of code, this would be like going in and finally changing values within the code itself without changing giant blocks.
Yeah, listen to this. It says here, I can't overstate the significance of this, said Fedor Urnov. He's one of the people that he wasn't involved in the research, but he works for UCal Berkeley, so I guess that makes him okay to talk about it. But he said this could be quite a useful avenger for the genome editing community, especially in translating basic research to the clinic to cure diseases ranging from sickle cell to cystic fibrosis. Prime editing inventors led by David Liu of the Board Institute of MIT and Harvard and postdoctoral fellow Dr. Andrew Anzalone said it had the potential to correct 89% of known disease-causing genetic variations in DNA from the single letter misspelling that causes sickle cell to the superfluous 4 letters that cause Tay-Sachs disease. All told, they report making 175 edits in human and mouse cells. They say there are more than 75,000 DNA changes associated with genetic disease. Collectively, they cover all of these. So it's called prime editing. Prime editing.
So Optimus Prime made it? That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
We're
You can
almost
look
out
at
of
this.
time,
It's on
Joe.
Stat News. We're about out of time. So it's interesting that this keeps on going, and instead this has no snipping. There's no snipping at all. That's crazy. They're just morphing one letter into another.
Yeah, they're
It's
just going
unbelievable.
in and changing values. That's pretty much all they're doing.
Almost like a, delete and just type it in again. Yeah.
Yep.
Unbelievable. So then what is I wonder what the long-term effects would be. What happens down the road from deploying this technology? Do you do away with all diseases, or do you create new ones in their place? Does the human body rebel? I don't know. It's just the infancy of this thing, and it's too early to tell, but I'm sure we'll find out. Probably in a disastrous
we've got
way,
all
'cause that's
these
how we roll.
identities. We've got non-binary. Soon we're going to have like fluid DNA. Dang, it's going to get confusing, dude.
Way confusing. Way confusing. So
Yeah.
we're out of time, folks. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll be back again on Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern. Your protection from deception. TFRlive.com. We're here on the Kevin Baker Show YouTube channel. Yeehaw! Have a good night, everybody.
You were getting destroyed by that there. That outro music was destroying you. The hamsters are destroying your connection. I want to thank everyone, though, before we go. I want to thank everyone. Awesome. Way over 200 for the majority of the 2 shows today. Thank you for letting me hang out with you, Joe. Thank all of you out there for getting us up to the 100 members. Yes,
very nice.
We have the hairy hand. The hairy hand is in the emojis.
Oh, we have the hairy hands.
Although
Very
I'm
nice.
going to find a better hairy hand. Yeah, I'm going to find a better hairy hand because it doesn't look like a good hairy hand. So, folks, we are going to get out of here. I'll be back tomorrow on the safe space. So I will catch you all then. Again, thank you all so much for tuning in. I'll play 30 seconds of my crap music, and we are out of here, folks.